General Stryker is dead. On the day he reached a cooperation agreement with Magneto, the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants, he probably wouldn't have thought that he and Magneto would both die at the same time. At this time, at the other end of the broken corridor, a frail figure came into view. His pale, paper-like face, like a figure that could be blown down by a gust of wind, would have thought that this person was a trash fish if it weren't for his faint mental fluctuations. Master of Illusions, the Phoenix Girl frowned. Stryker's son, Scythe, the film and television version of this teenager can be said to be extremely sad. Because of the loss of control of his ability, he is unable to lead himself. This son once let his mother force his head open. This horrific act of self-mutilation was witnessed by his father, General Stryker, who later hated his son and the entire race of mutants. Soon, he turned his son into a puppet like crippled, and even extracted his spinal cord to create a medicinal liquid that makes people unconscious and immersed in fantasy. After that, there is the endless arrest of mutants, trying to complete the vision of finally X weapon, and destroying the entire mutant race in one fell swoop. The endless increase in ambition also led the Stryker General to try to create an artificial Omega class. This time, he not only wanted to destroy a race, but also to dominate a world. Unfortunately, it's all over. Kill you, kill you. The Illusion Master, who had only a little instinct left, was still trying to attack Su Chen and Phoenix Girl after being injured just now. Despair. Su Chen didn't bother to entangle with this young child, so he snapped his fingers and generated a huge telekinetic cannonball that shattered the opponent's head. The existence of the spiritual and spiritual realm has a weak body. Even the body of the Phoenix Girl is not necessarily much stronger than that of a normal person. People like Su Chen are very rare and extremely rare. With another thought, Su Chen's magnetic field fluctuations awakened the surrounding metal objects, bullets, guns, and even the steel bars in the walls. He accelerated the cleaning, and the metal objects endowed with surging magnetic energy flew around the entire base. Puff, puff, puff. Under the piercing sound of the beautiful occasion, the soldiers who kept running for their lives were killed one by one. I'm going to help, Phoenix said. The combat power in the Snow Mountain base was nothing to worry about, and Chin Gele also ran down to prepare to go to the cell area to speed up the release of more mutants. I advise you not to do this. Behind the soldiers who were about to press the self-destruction button of the entire base, Su Chen's figure had already appeared. No matter how hard the right hand on the button was, it couldn't completely activate the entire explosion procedure. The officer swallowed and his pupils contracted violently because he couldn't manipulate his body. Then, he just turned into Su Chen's puppet and shot his own head with a gun. Almost there. Su Chen sighed secretly. His extraordinary hearing also picked up the sound of engines approaching in the air, the X-Men's Blackbird fighter. According to Chin Ge-Lei, the Mutant Academy was not wiped out, and several X-Men, Storm, Sunspot and others led a group of children to escape successfully. After receiving an internal signal, the supersonic cruise stealth fighter immediately came from a distance. The vast majority of the children captured by the Mutant Academies were unharmed, and they were undoubtedly lucky compared to the children killed in the Academy. The X-Men were valued by General Stryker, and after regaining consciousness from the manipulation of the Illusion Master, there were not many injuries. But, to their despair, Professor X Charles was still not awake. The trap set by Mystique seems to have caused irreversible brain damage. Under Chin Gray's inspection, it was found that the Illusion Master had forcibly activated most of his brain areas to attack others, which also made the injury worse. The worst-case scenario. Possible to become vegetative. May or may not wake up. This is Jean Grey's conclusion. How can that be? Everyone lamented everything and escaped from death, but got such a bad news. And, without Professor X, how could the Phoenix Girl be restrained? The memory of being a puppet has not been deleted. They clearly remember the outbreak of the power of the Phoenix, which suddenly cut off their connection with the Illusion Master. Over the years, many people still remember the scenes of Chin Ge-Lei's out-of-control outbreaks, many times just repairing the manner. Chin. Maybe I'll trouble you in the future. Storm took Chin Ge-Lei's hand, and the healing of the brain and even the spiritual level may require Chin Ge-Lei. Only. Chin Ge-Lei understood the mental thoughts around her at a glance. She pulled off Storm's right hand and shook her head. Do not. I can't help Professor X, there's nothing I can do, and I'm leaving. Chin Ge-Lei made her decision in front of everyone. The moment she said it, she felt relieved. Xavier Manor was the family she had lived in for more than 10 years, and she felt reluctant to leave, but inexplicably, she felt that the burden on her body suddenly lightened a lot. Come with him, Su Chen? Cyclops Scott and others have guessed the result somewhat. Yes. The Phoenix Girl nodded. She turned around and looked at the slender figure under the pine tree behind her. Her heart felt even more inexplicably warm. As long as I'm with him, I don't have to be so restrained, and I don't have to worry about whether I will hurt others. It is only with him that there is nothing to talk about. In her youth, at the same age as a female college student, Chingele, who has long passed her rebellious period, knows what dreams she should pursue and what life she hopes for. Goodbye, everyone. Words fall. Phoenix Girl officially broke away from the X-Men, overlapping with Su Chen's figure, holding hands and walking away, disappearing at the end of the field of vision. No one knows where they are going, where are they heading. But everyone knows that no one dares to disturb their lives. The next day. S.H.I.E.L.D. Trikurv Wing Headquarters Building. News of the annihilation of General Stryker's extremely secret base has reached this base camp. I understand. Nick Fury took a cigar, his face dignified. It's all self-inflicted. I heard that there are hundreds of pits in the cell area of the secret base. I don't know how many bones were buried under the secret operation for more than 10 years. A glamorous woman with short black hair reports. As the newly appointed deputy director of S.H.I.E.L.D., she needs to be responsible for probing the snowy mountain base that has been reduced to ruins. The dam at the scene was like a crushed can, compressed into a ball, and the hundreds of soldiers inside were also crushed, and the death was horrific. An Omega-level existence in the spiritual realm has the ability of Magneto, which is really scary. She sighed, only feeling that this young man was really a monster. Is there any clear coordinate information for him? No. Both he and the Phoenix Girl left the Mutant Academy. No one knows where they went. Heard. Nick Fury made a decision. Immediately drop all charges against Su Chen, and try to exert influence so that the Mutant Registration Act can be put on hold. And adjust Su Chen to be an Earth Threat Index S level existence, and non-level 10 agents are not allowed to search for the relevant files. 10th level agent. Only the Black Widow Natasha can have this authority as an agent on the bright side. Call. Nick Fury let out a breath of smoke, and in the smoke, he sighed inwardly that it was time to speed up the Avengers' plan. His target candidate was already in place, and 3 days ago, S.H.I.E.L.D. had received a suspected World War E plane under the permafrost somewhere in the Northland. S.H.I.E.L.D. was shocked by this. If you guessed correctly, there is a high probability that it belongs to the legend of World War E, Captain America Steve. The power of mutants has undergone a serious subversive change. The two giants of justice and evil, Professor X became a vegetable, Magneto died completely, and the Brotherhood suffered heavy losses and was very bleak. But the strange thing is that under this huge change in the pattern, the official government is uncharacteristically, and there is no too much interference in mutant affairs. The previous mutant registration plan disappeared with the death of Congressman Kelly. Even the official set up a brand new mutant affairs department, hired by the Beast McCoy as the minister. Not only that, but the Beast McCoy was also approached by S.H.I.E.L.D. and hired as a scientific advisor due to his outstanding IQ talent. Even some super criminals that S.H.I.E.L.D. can't take care of have begun to give full power to the X-Men. No matter how you look at it, the relationship between humans and mutants is beginning to break the ice. Professor, did you see it? The bridge between humans and mutants is about to be built, and we can really live in harmony with mutants. Storm confided to Professor X, who still had no Su Xing. But she also knew from the bottom of her heart that the official and S.H.I.E.L.D. gave such a face-to-face, and took the initiative to match the relationship between the two sides, not necessarily because of their superhero organization, the X-Men. Instead, it may be afraid of the emergence of multiple Omega-level mutants. Su Chen, Phoenix Girl, Scarlet Wanda. The appearance of these monsters definitely put a lot of pressure on them. It's no wonder that when Professor X was in a vegetative state, these people would not act rashly. The passing of hated mutants like General Stryker, Senator Kelly, is one aspect. On the other hand, it's just a very terrifying ultimate threat standing behind the mutants. Just standing up for one is enough to cause chaos in the world. Without the combat power to deter others, everything is a joke. Storm has somewhat realized such a truth. But the madness of this world did not stop there. On the contrary, except for Su Chen and a few people, very few people can understand the madness behind the Marvel Universe. Captain America Steve was successfully awakened from World War E into modern times. In less than a month, the Black Panther T'Challa successfully competed for the throne of Wakanda. He vowed to hunt down the vibranium military dealer Clow, and make this despicable Earthling pay a huge price. Because there was too much noise in Manhattan, S.H.I.E.L.D. could not help but contact him in advance. Then, an astonishing fact made them unacceptable. There is still a very terrifying mysterious country on Earth, a country with black technology. The Black Panther King T'Challa even considered whether to support world powers and support their technological level. Crazy. It's crazy. An African country that has never appeared on the map is going to help them. The most terrifying thing is that they are really the backward party based on the equipment and technology revealed by the Black Panther. Coincidentally, another month has passed, and S.H.I.E.L.D. has successfully captured the very irregular tidal fluctuations in the Atlantic Ocean. What no one knows is that a war about the Maritime Kingdom broke out in the ocean, and Namor Mackenzie, the illegitimate son from the ancient underwater kingdom of Atlantis, successfully seized the throne. After being crowned King of Atlantis, the most well-known Little Prince in the comics immediately made a high-profile appearance to the public. If the human kingdom adds your garbage into the ocean, I swear to destroy all your coastline cities. It seems that in order to verify the gold content of his domineering words, more than a dozen whaling merchant ships in the Atlantic Ocean sank directly under the endless waves that afternoon. As the first superhero in the history of Marvel Comics, and the first mutant to appear, this Namor even continued to make a high-profile remark about the mutant race. I also have the X gene. As long as I am here, my fellow mutants will not be slaughtered by humans. The madness of this world doesn't stop there. 2 months later, S.H.I.E.L.D. was even more dizzy. Because they found that after the ancient underwater country Atlantis became a reality, even Asgard in Norse mythology came. Thor, the god of thunder, was knocked down by his father, and Loki, the evil god, was eyeing him, trying to get rid of his titular big brother in one fell swoop. After this, he met and fell in love with astronomer Jane Foster, and fought side by side with S.H.I.E.L.D., and Loki's conspiracy was shattered. Compared with the unruly Namor, at least in Nick Fury's eyes, this simple and straightforward Thor is more accessible. For director S.H.I.E.L.D., the factors of madness in the world gradually increased, which also prompted him to strengthen the development of the cosmic Rubik's Cube, which in turn triggered the concern of another dark force in the universe. The emergence of Atlantis, Wakanda, and Asgard has greatly increased the pressure on Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. As a result, a far-reaching cosmic Rubik's Cube development plan was put on the agenda in the future, and the endless Rubik's Cube power was extracted to create a new concept of black technology weapons. The endless development is like putting a signal meter on the Earth, and the cosmic Rubik's Cube, that is, the power released by the space gem, constantly calls out to Thanos, the son of Titan. Time moves on. Bruce Banner was targeted by S.H.I.E.L.D., and included in the assessment list. This is undoubtedly a steal from General Ross, because 4 years ago, Dr. Banner, who incarnated as the Hulk, used the Queen's town as a playground and has continued to be wanted to this day. At the same time, Spider-Man Peter Parker has been bitten by a spider and begins his battle with his nemesis, the Green Goblin. The first-generation Ant-Man Henry Jonathan Pym also chose his successor, the second-generation Ant-Man Scott Lang. The Fantastic Four finally defeated their old rival, Dr. Doom, and imprisoned him in a special S.H.I.E.L.D. prison called the Raft. The Raft is a water prison with a large number of highly poisonous jellyfish cultivated in the surrounding waters. The internal facilities were built by Iron Man and installed with automatic fire beams and bioenergy damping fields. The latter is a device that specifically suppresses criminals' superpowers, and the Raft can be said to be armed to the teeth for superpower criminals. In addition, a very interesting place is that Wolverine was absorbed by S.H.I.E.L.D. and was classified as a member of the planned Avengers organization. In this world, Professor X did not retrieve his lost memory for him. Under the change of the timeline, Nick Fury came to the door and explained General Stryker's past transformation plan and related experiments on him. This prodigal son who had been wandering for more than 10 years chose to stay in S.H.I.E.L.D. After recalling the past scenes. After all, he was homeless, and his enemies in the experimental base had already been destroyed. The aimless Wolverine just stayed to find something, and reciprocated by the way. The power of superheroes is increasing day by day. The fangs of super criminals are also getting sharper. The two sides are like light and darkness, and it is impossible to hope that one side will disappear completely. A whole year has passed, and the figure about Su Chen has completely disappeared from the public's field of vision. He is like an urban legend, and disappears into the starry sky like a fleeting meteor. Before the demise of the entire mutant brotherhood, most people had never heard of Su Chen, but after that, it spread throughout the entire underground mutant world. Some people call him a passenger, which means that he is as gorgeous as a meteor, no one can compete with him, but he quickly disappears. The East Coast area is more popular with the title of Master and Omega. The literal translation of the former is naturally to dominate everything and be omnipotent. The latter, Omega itself, is the final level of mutants set by Professor Charles, which means the end, infinite potential, and the ultimate threat. In Xavier College, these two titles are very popular. Even the house where Su Chen lived in the past has almost become a tourist attraction, and the newly enrolled children are the first to come to take pictures. Apparently, after taking down the Brotherhood of Mutants, as well as General Stryker's forces, his popularity reached a peak. Certainly, it's not that no one has paid particular attention to Su Chen's whereabouts over the past year. In order to pay attention to this most terrifying and mysterious figure in the history of S.H.I.E.L.D., Deputy Director Hill, this glamorous short-haired woman specially recruited an action tracking team. Even the 7 satellites in low Earth orbit are to take care of the Master. Under the authority of the special application to the International Security Council, it also allows them to call the major video surveillance in the country at any time. 10 months ago, Hill had spotted Su Chen in a seaside city on the west coast. There is a female companion beside her, with waist-length red hair, tall stature and youthful charm, but it is the Phoenix female Chin Ge Lei. A brief surveillance record doesn't show what they're doing. According to guesses, it should be a vacation at the seaside, play. Later. 8 months ago, they found Su Chen, a Phoenix girl in a red dress, watching an opera in Manhattan. In just 2 months, they were once again found haunting Hawaii and Mount Everest. The two of them traveled in the mountains and waters, and visited the beautiful scenery of the world. But since half a year ago, video surveillance has been unable to capture any of them. What's even weirder is that the 2 agents who were sent to track them down suffered from amnesia, forgetting all the assigned tasks and any information about Su Chen. This amnesia spread like a virus through the action team. Everyone is more and more lost in spirit, just like direct heatstroke in the summer, listless, and lost in everything they do. In the end, it evolved into Alzheimer's dementia, bizarre disappearance, involvement in murders and other unfortunate things. The most bizarre thing is that even the information files began to be lost inexplicably. When the video surveillance failed to capture each other's information, in less than 2 months, 7 low Earth orbit satellites specially responsible for monitoring were damaged at the same time. Gulong. Hill swallowed. Even the cold beauty, who has been on the battlefield, was frightened by what happened in the past few months. Obviously did not see the other person's figure, but it was like a ghost haunting everyone's heart. Revocation of all affairs and closure of relevant groups. She made the final order herself. 2 months later. Deputy Director Hill re-examined after the incident, and there is an inference in his heart. The other party has never done it at all, but anyone's coveting will bring misfortune. Otherwise, the other party may not specifically play tricks on ordinary people like them. If the inference is correct, Hill is even more horrified. Su Chen's wish in a previous life was to split wood and feed horses to travel around the world. In the past, he couldn't do it. Chin Ge Lei, who grew up in the Mutant Academy, didn't see the world's topography with her own eyes. The two hit it off. After leaving the safe haven of the academy together, a pair of winged birds just walked around like this, traveling around during the year. He and Chin Gri personally measured the height of Mount Everest, and dived into the Mariana Trench together to experience the charm of the lowest valley in the deepest part of the world. At the highest peak, Su Chen could feel the faint magic fluctuations blowing under the snow wind. His incomparably sharp vision passed through the heavy snow and fog, and saw the mysterious palace on the Himalayas, Kamataj, the homeland where the guardians of the earth have lived for hundreds of years, and the temple in the hearts of magic apprentices. He personally brought the Phoenix female piano, Gray, to visit, but it was a pity that the supreme mage, Ji Yi, went outside the dimension, and the two sides never met. Only. The holder of the time stone seems to have foreseen this in advance. The supreme mage has gone far away. She has already given instructions to welcome the 2 distinguished guests to the door. All books in the temple library are open to you. The Chinese temple mage named King waited specially in front of the palace gate. It was the first time that Phoenix was surprised, and she was genuinely curious about the supreme mage and its mysterious magic that she had never known about. There is such a scene behind this world. The two happily entered and stayed there for 10 days. When parting, Su Chen calmly left a letter to the Supreme Master. After they left, Wang was amazed by this. In just a few days, Su Chen's female companion had learned a lot of magic. As for Su Chen himself, he couldn't see through it. This guy has read it all. Bluffing? Pretend. Still fully comprehended. He dared not think. After all, this is the honored guest of the Supreme Mage, and the king actually has the answer in his heart. After walking through the mountains, they soon came to the lowest valley. In the lowest valley of the earth, the two of them are in the deep sea calmly, and they are not bothered by the pressure of the deep sea. A faint psychic barrier appeared around the two of them. They didn't touch any seawater, and floated lightly in the deep sea. If they were normal human beings, a body would have been squashed and smeared with blood. In the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, the two of them even saw an ancient seal. Su Chen knows very well that the source of the ancient seal's power is not from any inherited magic of Kamatage, but from the power of Odin in Norse mythology. The reason for this is definitely not Kamatage, because he is a little bit of a millionaire. As for the power of Odin, Su Chen, who has read many magic books without any omission, naturally dares to judge. Behind the ancient seal is a giant snake, Jemengard in Norse mythology. According to legend, the head and tail of this snake can encircle a world. It's really immoral. Odin doesn't throw this thing in the Asgard domain and seal it on Earth, right? Certainly. The reason why Odin, the king of the gods, is so arrogant, one is naturally jealous, and the other is that in his eyes, the 9 domains including the Earth are his king land. In a sense, human beings can also be regarded as slaves of his people. However, this change in concept has to talk about an ancient secret that happened thousands of years ago. In the records of Kamatage's ancient supplements, the cosmic deity group once visited the Earth to observe the trend of life on Earth. And the gods of the Earth discovered these traces, and a shocking war broke out. The final answer is, the Cosmos God group was unscathed, the gods of the Earth were completely defeated, and all the gods were restricted from interfering in human affairs. This very attracted Su Chen's curiosity. In his previous life, he was just a fan of Marvel's film and television version, and he had never read the specific comic settings, so he naturally didn't know the cosmology behind Marvel. However, this book was written by the previous Supreme Mage, and Agamotto, who named the Time Stone after him, is very sure that the mutants are the miracles of life created by the cosmic deity group. In other words, the X gene is an experimental product of their ancient times. This is kind of interesting. After visiting the ancient seal, the spectacle of the deep sea did not end here. Su Chen and Qin Gray met the natives here on their return journey, Atlantis. Full of curiosity, they went to the underwater kingdom of Atlantis. It was a mega city as beautiful as a dragon palace under the sea. An inverted giant bowl dome was supported above this ancient country, free from all attacks and all prying eyes. Su Chen was naturally unruly, and took the Phoenix Girl to visit. He met the present king of Atlantis, Namor, and the angry king was dissatisfied with the presence of humans, and a battle broke out. The result is a one-sided crush. Namor, who has an incomparably huge underwater advantage, didn't even touch a single hair of Su Chen, and suddenly, he became like a drowning man. He struggled so hard that he lost his ability to swim, like a landlubber. This is terrible. Who would have thought that the king of Atlantis, one of the most powerful deep-sea warriors, could not breathe in the sea? After a little punishment, Sea King Namor was able to rise to the surface and lay down on the beach to breathe desperately. For 3 months after that, he never made any public speeches again. The reason is actually because of Su Chen, but no one knows. What's even more humiliating is that, under the promise of pressing his head, Namor let the two of them travel in Atlantis and did not allow anyone to disturb them. After this amazing week of underwater travel, the two happily went on other trips. And the deputy director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hill, naturally did not know that the two had such a wonderful destination. Whether it was Kamatage and the underwater kingdom, this was a world she could not visit. Chopping wood and feeding horses to travel around the world. Su Chen and Qin Ge Lei's journey has just begun. I have walked through the highest mountains and through the deepest seas. Su Chen and Qin Ge Lei have been to the most prosperous city, watched Shakespeare's opera, and ate supper in the market. Their eyes have seen the most beautiful beauty in the world, and their footprints have fallen in every mysterious country behind the world. After walking through Kamatage and Atlantis, the two of them even went to the mysterious African country, Wakanda. It was a black tech country where even satellite positioning could not track any valid information. The reason was that a dome-shaped energy cover supporting the country made it just a forest to the outside world. Only the military smuggler Crow can find a secret shortcut. But Su Chen is upright, and with his more and more impressive spatial attainments, he led the Phoenix Girl to Wakanda like this. After a friendly exchange, the wryly smiling Black Panther King could only be received as a VIP, and by virtue of the fact that he gave the other party a special product before he left. That is, Zhenjin. Vibranium, also known as sound-absorbing steel, is very hard like Edmund alloy, and is one of the strongest metals on Earth. Due to its relatively static unique molecular structure, it conducts almost no heat and kinetic energy, which also means it can absorb any energy from external shocks. Hence the name, sound-absorbing steel. Captain America's shield, Black Panther's weapons and armor are all made of this material. As a magnetic master, Su Chen can also be called a master craftsman. The invisible magnetic fluctuations quickly stimulated the surging heat, and immediately melted a piece of vibrating gold. Under the shaping of his magnetic energy, it suddenly turned into a piece of lady's armor. Black Panther's sister Su Rui envied the love between the two and added a boost to her. As one of the few existences who can compete with Tony the Iron Man in IQ, Shuri invented the nanoparticle assembly technology. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Panther's nano-vibration suit is not one of them. Iron Man's latest Mark 50 nano-armor also uses this latest cutting-edge technology. Soon, the entire set of women's undershirt armor turned into a necklace, which was worn around Chin Gray's graceful and well-proportioned neck. I'm really envious, don't you need Zhenjin equipment? Su Rui was a little puzzled. This man hadn't thought about it for himself. Su Chen shook it and said flatly, my body is the best weapon. The words are so indifferent, but it makes people unable to question the credibility of them. This guy is a monster. After half a year of traveling, Su Chen and Qin Ji Lei finally stopped. They live far away from the hustle and bustle of the city and live in a beautiful and scenic city, and the two start a cohabitation life. Who would have thought that the red-clad Phoenix girl would put on an apron, tie up her long hair in a ponytail, and stir-fry dishes with a spoon? Just like a young and beautiful female college student, I spent an afternoon tea time with Su Chen in the cafe. After half a year, Su Chen's physique has become taller and stronger, but every muscle with sharp edges and corners does not appear to be bloated, but is well-proportioned and very fit. Qin Ji Lei still maintains a tall figure like a supermodel, and with a gentle and quiet face, it is enough to shock the heavens and the people. When he and Qin Ji Lei went shopping in the mall, especially when Qin held Su Chen's arm, it also made people wonder who to envy. Don't call me a teacher, don't call me a teaching assistant, don't call me my sister. Qin Ji Lei has made 3 chapters of the law many times. After confirming the relationship and even living together, being shouted so suddenly by Su Chen is enough for this young girl to cover her red apple face. The two joked from time to time, and Su Chen also broke the contract many times, but the trouble made Qin a little overwhelmed. The two of them looked like the same age on the outside, but there was actually a 3-year age gap. Before that, there was a clear teacher-student relationship. It can be said that this title is not wrong. You are not allowed to shout in front of others, you can only shout in private. In the end, the unbearable Qin could only reluctantly agree. The outside world is still bustling and noisy, and superheroes are springing up like mushrooms after a spring rain, but the soil of sin has not decreased, but has increased day by day. The two who started cohabitation didn't pay much attention to it at all, and they didn't care about the outside world. 3 months ago, they even further left the apartment and built their own home on the edge of a beautiful lake. What a nice view. Qin Ji Lei was deeply impressed. The scenic lake is like a sapphire dripping from the sky, and the horizontal surface of the blue mirror is sparkling. This is an inaccessible Tianshan mountain, inaccessible. In order to create his own paradise, Su Chen moved the mountains, changed the river course, and put one hand against the soil of the earth. A huge ancient tree that can only be hugged by dozens of people rose up from the sky, and he transformed a treehouse on this giant tree. Under night. In the warm night wind, there was the sound of vinyl records coming from the treehouse. A small boat floated lightly on the lake. The two of them lay on it and looked at the bright Star River. No one can disturb them, because before that, Su Chen also gave a mental ability on purpose. Any creature near this area will be driven out by inexplicable fear. Qin Ji Lei raised her right hand and counted the constellations. The starry sky is so beautiful. Watching the stars and the beautiful scenery of silver stars, Su Chen sincerely admired it. Beautiful scenery. People are more beautiful. Finally, Su Chen, who was lying on his side, looked at Qin's flawless profile and added the last sentence. This is the life he wants. If he could, he hoped that such days would last for the rest of his life. A year has come. It's been a whole year since Su Chen and Phoenix Nuoken Ji Lei left the academy together. Life requires a sense of ritual. This festive day is worth celebrating. After all, it is also the first anniversary of the two people's confirmed relationship. Perhaps it was Su Chen's joyful emotions that permeated into reality. The treehouse he lived in, along with the surrounding forests, and the big blue lake in front of him were inexplicably stained with a filter of happiness. A rainbow of colorful colors spanned the lake, and the sky was raining a layer of rose petals. The birds flew together and sang happily. There is also the roar of the deer from both sides of the river, and the sound of the wind rustling through the woods rustling, and even nature will cheer it up. This year, Su Chen didn't just care about traveling and talking about love. In fact, his cultivation has not stopped for a day. To be precise, there is no pause for a minute or a second. The characters in Shushan's novels need to experience the mortal world and wash away the mortal dust in their hearts before they can be enlightened. Superman in DC only needs to absorb solar radiation, can lie down, sit, and even fall asleep, all of which can increase his strength. And Su Chen is more exaggerated than the former. Anyway, when Superman is at night, the absorption rate of body cells will slow down a lot. But when Su Chen is mutating and evolving genes all the time, but he has not stopped for this, every second and every minute, he is evolving, and his strength is increasing. This has also allowed him to add countless abilities in the past year. He has a little understanding of all kinds of abilities, whether it is spiritual, whether it is elemental attributes, or all kinds of superpowers. Thanks to the third mental runaway, he was able to feel the meaning of the gene mutation information. That is, he can clearly understand the process of gene mutation in the content of expression. It's like seeing a download progress bar. 99.9%, 0.100%, after the successful genetic transformation, a brand new ability, blood manipulation, is formed and solidified. Gene mutations are disordered, and now Su Chen can't interfere with it. And because the genes are extremely numerous, sometimes several new abilities will appear at once. However, when encountering harsh environments and threatening attacks, the genetic mutation has a very clear direction, and it will inevitably move towards the direction of adapting and restraining the threat. The simplest is the threat of ultra-high temperature, and the cells of the whole body have evolved a terrible Kong property. Likewise, the previous principle of use it or lose it is still valid. In other words, the same ability will increase its power when used repeatedly. The intuitive representation is that reality tampering LV 1 foot is promoted to reality tampering LV 2 feet. To this, in order to sum up the extra abilities in his mind, Su Chen also created an evolutionary gene pool, just like the memory palace he built for himself to process all kinds of information. It is like the CPU of a computer, which can calculate and aggregate various information processing. Each ability will be aggregated here. There are currently a total of 717 abilities. Your abilities are as follows: reality tampering, modification probability, psychic power, sensory enhancement, instant movement. Every read in progress, new capabilities in the gene loading process will also be captured in real time. For example, the new ability, Gigantic, is being loaded and formed, and the current progress is 87%. The new ability, Astral Projection, is being loaded and formed, and the current progress is 57%. The new ability, Ultrasonic, is being loaded and formed, and the current progress is 37%. Modification probability LV 5 feet is undergoing mutation promotion, currently evolving 54%. Imagination realization LV 5 feet is undergoing mutation promotion, currently evolving 67%. This is the newly created evolutionary gene pool. The real-time change information of many genes is quickly aggregated in this gene bank, so that Su Chen can clearly understand what has changed in his body. This is already a bit similar to the prototype of the supercomputer he envisioned. A memory palace is something that some very few geniuses have, and they store all the books they read in the past and the information they have seen at a glance in the memory library. The classic image is Sherlock Holmes, mind-reading detective, and so on. The evolutionary gene bank, the concept of real-time aggregation of whole-body gene transformation and evolution, is unheard of, and it is Su Chen's pioneering achievement. In a sense, it's a bit like a system in a web novel. Su Chen smiled. He traveled to the Marvel world and never awakened the system. Now, he has fabricated a system out of thin air. There is no system, you create a system yourself. And it's a system that doesn't tell people to do things. The colorful fragrance of fallen flowers fell down, and under the sound of classical music films, the men and women on the field had already danced a dance. There is no specific dance posture, just follow the music tune to entertain at will. The two held their fingers together, face to face, telling endless love words. The first anniversary night was such a joyous time. They have already begun to imagine the second anniversary. No. It is the story of the 1.5th anniversary, the second anniversary, the 2.5th anniversary. The two quickly exchanged gifts. A winter sweater, a couple's style, I also have one, all of which I knitted by myself, as well as a hand account. A faint smile appeared on Chin Ge Lei's gentle face. Worldly money is simply a passing thing to the two of them, and the two of them don't care at all. If the gift is measured by money, it is a great humiliation. For this gift, Chin put a lot of thought into it. In order to give a surprise, she even buried her head in the study alone and prevented Su Chen from watching. Well done. Su Chen praised that the white sweater didn't even have a stitch, and the craftsmanship was amazing. As for the handbook, there is a notebook full of 100 pages, which records the photos taken by various Polaroids and SLRs, all of which are sweet photos of the two people around the world within a year. In addition to the simple photos, there are also various paintings, as well as the simple strokes of the piano and the words of the heart. This level of effort can simply give full marks. Well, I was almost beaten by you. Su Chen was naturally unwilling to admit defeat. Granted, gift value is inferior if you compare it to money, it's all about heart and creativity. My present should almost be delivered. Su Chen embraced Qin beside him with one hand, then looked up at the starry sky. See, that's a gift I gave you. This moment. Under the bright starry sky, the luster of a star suddenly shined, and then it stood out like this and fell towards the earth. A star. This is Su Chen's gift, and the most romantic thing he could imagine. In order to allow his mind to penetrate to a starry sky, he repeatedly tempered his mind power 3 months in advance, and he did not stop using it every minute and every second. After being identified as psychodynamic LV 15 feet, this force is enough to pull the next star in outer space. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as soon as Thanos obtained the power gem, he was able to instantly pull the next satellite from outer space. Although Su Chen at the moment does not yet have such a terrifying momentary explosive power, but relying on his own spiritual fluctuations to penetrate the reality, with the combination of exaggerated and considerable mental power, he has successfully pulled a star with a clever trick. Whoosh! In an instant, a chess piece was really dropped in the starry night. A dazzling star fell towards the earth like this. Stars are originally celestial bodies. Under the action of traction, they quickly rubbed against the atmosphere, and the surface quickly burned into flames. In the blink of an eye, it crossed the sky like a meteor. Su Chen raised his right hand forward, and the surging magnetic fluctuations were applied to it, giving magnetic energy to the entire celestial body. With a single thought, the entire stream of continuous burning and shrinking fire began to shape inside. At last, the meteor turned into a small firework and fell steadily into his palm from the sky. Blow a breath. Su Chen put his hand in front of Qin Ji Lei and gestured. Qin also breathed forward in anticipation, and the fireworks that fell in her hands were blown away at once, and finally, a silver-white ring appeared in Su Chen's palm. Wow! Qin cried out happily, and even hugged Su Chen excitedly. In order to truly pick a star for his girlfriend, but to pull a celestial body from outer space, the timing must be grasped, otherwise, it will take a lot of time on the ground. Beyond that, such a celestial body is essentially a cratered asteroid, which is not aesthetically pleasing at all. So, Su Chen might as well build a brand new ring from it. And for this very romantic performance, he took his psychic power to a whole new level. In the past 3 months, every minute and every second of my mind has been releasing the fluctuations of psychic power. Under the principle of using it and losing it, it can be said that the tide is rising. This ability, which was awakened at the beginning, also showed a terrible scene today. Under Qin's expectant gaze, Su Chen also put the commemorative ring on the other's index finger. The first anniversary of the two ended with such a surprise. Time continues to go down. The apartment where the two originally lived together opened several doors after half a month. That's when Su Chen's spatial attainments rose again. Each door opens directly to other famous cities or attractions. Of course, this is a one-way door, and it is impossible to enter from the outside. Besides, the interior space of the entire apartment is like Harry Potter cast the straightless stretching charm, which has expanded more than 10 times at once, and even has 3 more floors. From the outside, the single-family apartment is still the same as before, and there is no difference at all. Such a spatial layout is naturally a reference to Kamar-Taj and its 3 major magic temples on Earth. Its internal structure is also much larger than it looks from the outside, and there are doors leading to various places inside. It just so happens that, after tonight, a guest finally came to visit Su Chen's house in person. Wearing a slim-fitting crimson robe with a hood, beneath a gentle and calm face, and a bald head without a single hair. This person is the protector of the earth, the supreme mage Ji Yi. Welcome, Ji Yi. Terribly sorry. I was in the extra dimension when you last visited Kamar-Taj. Ji Yi sat cross-legged on a couch, quietly watching Su Chen brew a cup of tea. Su Chen's tea art is not the most top-notch, but it is smooth and flowing, showing the demeanor of a master in every move. Qin Ji Lei, in a red dress, sat beside her, watching her lover's performance. I am very concerned about the extra dimension you speak of, Su Chen said. The two were clearly meeting for the first time. But Ji Yi, the supreme mage who is over 700 years old, gives people an incomparable sense of intimacy. She responds to every request and eloquently shares everything Su Chen wants to know. The universe you are in is the 616 universe, a single universe. Countless single universes, together with one extra dimension, some pocket universes, can be combined into a multiverse. Such a world view of the universe is knowledge that Su Chen and Qin Ji Lei have not been involved in too much in the past. Ji Yuizhan, like a patient elder, spoke without concealment. Most of the extra universes are very strange and dangerous. There are dimensions where souls live. There are also dark dimensions dominated by the evil god Dormammu, and the crimson dimension dominated by the demon god Cytoric. And the mortal enemy of the earth has always been the monarch of the dark dimension, Dormammu. He has coveted the earth for thousands of years, and the 2 generations of supreme mages have been unable to curb his ambitions. This time I went to the dark dimension to monitor how the opponent's strength recovered. I didn't expect some small collisions, which delayed some time. Small collision. The Supreme Master Ji Yi said that it is relaxed and plain. But according to her disclosure, it took almost half a year for her to get out of the dark dimension. It's simple, but the reality is not so easy. After taking the teacup handed over by Su Chen with both hands very respectfully, the Supreme Master Ji Yi took a sip of the tea, and finally couldn't help but said, "Don't you want to know why I take care of you so much?" She didn't expect the young man in front of her to be so calm, so she didn't ask this crucial question. It is to invite camotage, and to let go of any magic book collection. This kind of care and grace is not small. You must know that even the chief disciple of Ji Yi, Baron Mordo, did not receive this treatment. "Don't you want me to be the next supreme mage?" Su Chen laughed. "I do have this idea, but I am very aware of the direction of Kamatage's future timeline. You will not be, and there is not even a chance." Ji Yi smiled and shook his head. "Can you see any timeline in the future?" This aroused Qin Ji Lei's curiosity. Su Chen also told her that this supreme mage has a time gem and can understand the direction of the long river of time. Seeing Qin's confusion, the supreme mage Ji Yi didn't give in. He looked serious and said very solemnly, "The Eye of Agamotto gave me the direction to see through the fog of future history. There are many doomed failures on the earth. As the guardian of the earth, I am responsible for correcting the correct answer." Certainly. Interfering with the trend of history is a very dangerous thing. Forcibly changing the doomed result will only lead to all kinds of troubles. Besides that, I don't see any future direction from you. It's like you don't belong to this world. You are too special and too smart. In fact, maybe you are the big change in the future. How dangerous is the American comics world? The action of exterminating the entire universe led by Thanos alone will not be repeated many times. Take the most famous Thanos as an example. In addition to the most famous Thanos in the form of infinite gloves in film and television, there is also an emperor-shaped Thanos, that is, the old Thanos. The head of the planet Devourer has become his throne. After being slaughtered by him, the Hulk became his dog. Thanos, who has the shape of the heart of the universe, restarted the multiverse in one fell swoop. All things are one. The controller Thanos form is even more exaggerated to the extreme, defeating the Court of Life and Ao in one fell swoop. And it's just Thanos. There are many more threats like this in the universe. Like the dark dimension Dormammu that the supreme mage Ji Yi is worried about, it is not a top group when looking at the universe, and it may be extremely threatening to the Earth. The most terrifying thing is that any big threat in the universe will inevitably affect the Earth. This is a classic scene in the comics, where the Avengers face a multiverse-level enemy many times stronger than them every time. Not to mention the comic editors of Marvel and DC are habitually eating books. In order to overthrow his previous complicated decades-old settings, a universe restart directly. Marvel's 616 main universe has become a new and different universe after the reboot. DC also restarted after the Flashpoint paradox and became the New 52 universe. After the new Doomsday Bell event, the New 52 universe was restarted again. Don't ask. Asking is self-indulgent. If you want the universe to restart, restart it. The Earth is the junction point of various major events. The current Supreme Mage, who has guarded the Earth for more than 700 years, and is in charge of the Time Gem, can observe the direction of the timeline. How can the ancient master not know? Earth is too dangerous. And Su Chen is too special, she can't see through. So this is why the Supreme Master favors Su Chen, and even thinks that he is the big variable in the future. To this, Su Chen had no idea. His talent is too special. Infinite evolution, super Darwinian physique, can be called an infinitely enhanced version of Doomsday. Powerful, gave him a lot of confidence and assurance. The aroma of tea was spilled freely throughout the tea room, and smoke rose from the teapot. The two drank tea and chatted for a while. Qin Gele, who was on the side, added tea from time to time and listened to their conversation quietly. Speaking of Earth, Su Chen's topic involuntarily thought of the Universe God group. As one of the earliest life races after the birth of the universe, they are like the orderer, arbiter, administrator, and cleaner of the universe, and they have multiple roles to continuously operate this homeland. The most important thing is that the Tenjin group has visited Earth, and more than once. Su Chen specifically mentioned the experience of traveling to the Mariana Trench with Qin Gray. Ancient Seal. The monarch of the Asgardian domain did something very inauthentic, and even said that it was very overbearing and rude. The Earth thousands of years ago was called Midgard by them, and it was regarded as one of the 9 domains, the territory under the throne of the gods. Also, 1,000 years ago, the god group visited the Earth again and completely drove out the footprints of the gods. Earth. Ji Yi said. These are described in detail in Kamatage's Ancient Supplements book. That book was written by my teacher Agamotto. After Agamotto stepped down as the supreme mage, he did not die, but survived to this day. Now he lives in an extra dimension. He is one of the 3 major demon gods of Waishandi and the source of power of Kamatage white magic. According to his guess, the Earth is very special. First, the human soul is different from other planetary races, which is favored by the god group. In order to check the limit of human specific potential, part of the human body has been modified and returned to observe regularly. And the experimental body is the source of the mutant X gene. After the supreme mage took a sip, he continued to talk about these ancient secrets. Speaking of mutants in the X gene, after that, another question was raised. At least tens of thousands of years ago, another alien race, the Kree, visited the Earth. They discovered the X gene hatched by the Celestial group, and they followed suit, and a new race, the Inhumans, was born. The following revelations shocked Qin Ji Lei. Compared with the mutants who have already broken into the public eye, the Inhumans are even more unheard of. Su Chen didn't dabble in Marvel-related settings in his previous life, so after hearing about it, he became a little curious. Speaking back to the god group, Agamotto has another guess in his heart. He has not recorded it. It is rumored that the gods of the gods were parasitized by cosmic locusts billions of years ago, and finally solved the disease by relying on the life of the Earth. Since that day, the Tenjin group has become more interested in the Earth. After Ji Yi finished speaking, he pondered for a while. She sighed and said, "At least both are very credible, because I have really observed the infestation of cosmic locusts in extra dimensions. Light and shadow reflect the world, and no one can disperse the other. The life and destruction of the universe are like these 2 poles, coexisting with each other. In this way, the Earth is indeed very special, and even controls the universe to a certain extent." Su Chen already had the answer in his heart. Why does the Earth become the big stage of the universe? If you are in the audience, you may come to an easy conclusion that the superheroes of the Earth are the protagonists. No matter how strong the enemy of the universe is, it is not normal to come here for a stroll. Otherwise, give them the lens and performance. Certainly. This is a superficial understanding, but the official has said and explained it. In the Marvel Comics setting, Earth is the heart of the universe. In DC, Earth is the origin of life in the universe. In Marvel's big event, Secret War, multiple single universes collided with each other, and their impact point is the Earth. As long as the Earth is destroyed, the universe can survive. Being stronger is king. At this moment, Su Chen deeply realized the specific danger of the universe, and had a new understanding and worldview of the Earth and the universe. After drinking tea and eating desserts, the afternoon is almost over. Before leaving, she seemed to ask Su Chen unwillingly, "Really don't consider the current supreme mage?" Heard. Su Chen also downvoted the answer. Ji Yi smiled and didn't say much, but she also promised to lend her personal collection of books, some of her own insights and notes in extra dimensions to herself for observation. That's knowledge that none of Kamatage's library has. With such a favor, Su Chen will not treat him empty-handed, and he will not consider the position of supreme mage that binds him for life, but an honorary advisor is still very easy to hang up. After saying parting greetings, Ji Yi put on a hood, made a circle with one hand, and opened a space portal directly in the air, and the whole figure fled away. The next day, Su Chen's single-family cottage in a European town is ringing again. The visitor is a Chinese king. This person is also the future right-hand man of Doctor Strange. This is the package sent to you by the Supreme Mage, Ji Yi. Wong waved his hand, and the fingertips burst into bright fireworks, and then drew an arc. When the arcs closed with each other, the door was completely open, and I saw that it was filled with various books. To be honest, I have never seen the Supreme Mage take a person so seriously. Wong did not dare to neglect, he did it himself, only to see him cast a spell, and the books stored in his personal space flew up calmly. As if endowed with life, he quickly stacked himself on the table in Su Chen's house. I won't disturb you by entering. If you have time, you can come to the London temple. Let's continue to discuss. It should be a face-to-face advice. Wang rubbed his bald head somewhat honestly. During Su Chen's 10 days in Kamatage, he had a lot of discussions and exchanges, and the result was a complete failure. The scary thing is that the other party only has 3 days of magic learning, which is enough to get him, the Templar mage who has been immersed in it for more than 10 years. More frustrating than talent, certainly. Supreme Mage Ji Yi did not just admire Su Chen, the next Supreme Mage in the future, a well-known surgeon, had already been appointed by her. Now it's just waiting for an opportunity to let the somewhat arrogant surgeon lose everything and go to Kamatage after regaining hope in life. But in this universe, due to the appearance of Su Chen, Strange seems to be a bit of a spare tire. The magic system of Kamatage is also different from traditional Western fantasy magic novels. You will find that they rarely use wands, and it's also a bit like a melee mage. Once there is a collision, you will even find that the two sides fight each other in close quarters. Certainly. This does not mean that Kamatage's magic is relatively low-end. In fact, it is not long before apprentices start to get in touch with related space magic. Concentrate on the screen, outline the destination in your mind, combine magic gestures, and resonate with the ring hanging in your hand, so as to open a space channel. This scene is exactly the bridge section of Doctor Strange. Getting started is space magic, which is really good enough. A slightly accomplished Templar mage can even open the mirror space by himself. This is a common domain magic in movies, enough to allow mages to unlock a mirrored reality in which any destruction that occurs will not affect the real reality. Kamatage has been able to hide in the world for so many years, and it is only by this one hand. In this way, in the 10 days of Kamatage, Su Chen's most rapid achievement is naturally space magic. Getting started is space magic. Going up is naturally more powerful. To say that the top magic of Kamatage is nothing more than all kinds of power borrowed from the devil and even the extra dimension. The source of the power of white magic is the Trinity demon god Waishandi. The trick used by Doctor Strange, who has transformed into thousands of clones, to imprison Thanos is the Crimson Chan, whose power comes from the Crimson dimension. The chaotic magic cast by Wanda, a young, intelligent and self-taught Crimson Witch, is also the same, originating from the god of black magic. So, as long as there is a trick, or even if you are brave enough, you can ask for your own power from the devil and even the major extra dimensions. On the desk in front of him, there is a crimson collection. Su Chen lacked interest in this, glanced at it roughly, and after swept into his memory palace, he didn't do much research. Rather than asking for strength from others, Su Chen believes in the actual strength within his body that belongs to him. Therefore, among the books sent by the Supreme Mage Ji Yi this time, the ones that attract more attention are those personal notes about the universe worldview, timeline, and extra dimensions. Qin Ji Lei, who was sitting cross-legged on the sofa beside her, also glanced at these magic books at random. She also learned a lot of magic. However, compared to the power of the Phoenix, even the magic god-level magic is just a little trick for her to get started. On the first anniversary, the visual shock brought by Su Chen pulling a celestial body made Qin Ji Lei unforgettable to this day. In addition to being sweet, there was always a trace of unease in the Phoenix girl's heart. Yesterday, I saw that the guardian of the earth like the Supreme Mage Ji Yi favored Su Chen, and her pressure increased even more. That night, on the balcony, riding the warm breeze, Qin Gele made a very important decision to Su Chen. Su, my strength has gradually lagged behind you, and I may not even be able to see your back. I can't believe that you will have the power of a cosmic god in the future, but I can only stand still, and it is difficult for me to grow in strength. Qin tightly held Su Chen's right hand and spoke out the insecurity in her heart. After all, reality is not a romance novel. Too large a gap in identity or strength will only bring about more alienation. Different classes have already meant that they have lost a lot of common ground in their language communication. Su Chen naturally understood what the other party was thinking. At the same time, he also sighed secretly, and his performance in the one-year anniversary was still too shocking, and it put too much pressure on her. I understand. Su Chen held Qin's hand backhand, expressing understanding and support. And this support means that Qin Ji Lei has to involve too much in the development and application of the power of the Phoenix. In the past 10 years or so, under the strict prohibition of Professor X, Qin Ji Lei, the host of the Phoenix, could not use this terrifying force that could endanger the entire universe if it was not necessary. Therefore, from a child to a young girl, Qin Ji Lei's attainment in the power of the Phoenix has not improved much. Now, She wants to break through the constraints of the past and begin to learn how to harness this power with ease. Even Su Chen held Qin's hands tightly and promised her that no matter what happened in the future, he would be omnipotent, multiverse, or single universe. I will not cool down a single point of my love for her. Maybe after hearing this solemn promise, Qin Ji Lei will withdraw her attempt to dig out the power of the phoenix, but it is inevitable that there will be a sense of insecurity in her heart. Instead, Su Chen might as well obey her wishes. And the problem of Phoenix's power on Qin really needs to be solved. This problem cannot continue to drag on. Treehouse. The two returned to their Xanadu the next day, and considering the big movement that might come, they needed a quieter place. Are you nervous? Qin Ji Lei felt Su Chen's mood swings. Call. Su Chen breathed a sigh of relief. He was really nervous at this moment. It was like returning to the second before the announcement of the college entrance examination scores. I haven't seen this kind of tension in a long time. Yes. He nodded frankly, because his heartbeat also betrayed himself. To be frank, if he was mortally wounded now, he probably wouldn't frown, but when the problem was with Qin Ji Lei, his long-lost nervousness kept rising. After all, this is to let him slowly release the power of the phoenix sealed by Qin. If you are not careful, there may be unimaginable consequences. Especially when it comes to the brain and spiritual fields, a deviation, a little mistake, he cannot allow it to appear. Give me another day. Su Chen needs to be more fully grasped. Or, let's forget it. Seeing Su Chen with a very serious expression and a hint of anxiety, Qin Ji Lei only felt heartache, and even hated why she made such a request last night. Do not. It can't be done like this. The issue of the power of the phoenix really can't be delayed. It's been a year, and I can't let this unstable time bomb continue. Su Chen said decisively. Rather than Jin's guilt, he felt guilty for ignoring the question for so long. Within a day, Su Chen sits cross-legged under a big tree like a closed door monk. His brain is like a sophisticated supercomputer, constantly calculating the process and calculating the probability of his own success. Even a 1 in a million probability of failure, such a tiny probability, is not something he can tolerate. After a whole day of calculations, he finally had full confidence. Because of the overuse of his brain, Su Chen once rested for most of the day. It was not until the next night, after eating the dinner cooked by Qin Ji Lei himself, that he started a new round of experiments. On the couch in the treehouse, the two were sitting cross-legged facing each other, and Su Chen's hands were already on Qin's head. His mental power immediately penetrated into Qin's brain, and such an operation would inevitably usher in a bit of instinctive resistance, but Qin Ji Lei did not resist with her whole body, so that the process went very smoothly. Soon, Su Chen felt Qin Ji Lei's joys, and the taste of happiness in it was like an ocean that was immersed in it. Carefully passing through her emotions and through her beautiful memories, Su Chen's spiritual tentacles have reached a depth of soul that is completely blocked and unable to move forward. Mind cage. This is the cage that Professor X Charles arranged when Qin Gray was a child. According to Qin, this was the cell used to imprison the Phoenix Force. Su Chen subconsciously thinks that this is a 9-tailed cage similar to Naruto in Naruto. But when his mental tentacles arrived, he found out that it was an airtight forbidden place, like 4 black curtains hanging down, unable to see a little bit of the scene inside. Su Chen's spiritual power began to solidify, and he easily melted the power of the seal, leaving a door open to the black curtain in front of him. And the person holding the key is himself. When he carefully pushed the door, wisps of phoenix powers suddenly emerged like red smoke. In addition, there was a piece of memory. This was unexpected by Su Chen. Let's watch together. Qin's voice came from her mind, and she could feel everything. In this way, the memory fragment was read by the two of them. In an instant, the blues music that was popular at the end of the last century came to the ears of the two. After the vision gradually became clear, they realized that they were in the back row of a vehicle. This self refers to Qin Ji Lei when she was 6 years old. With a delicate face and a full-fledged beauty embryo, she sits in the back row as obediently as a delicate porcelain doll. It's just that this little beauty has already frowned. Because of the emotional fluctuations, the disturbing radio music made her very unhappy. She screamed and asked her parents to turn off her music. The violent emotional ups and downs inexplicably penetrated into reality, but instead of turning off the music, it made the music louder. What? With a scream, Qin Gray, who had awakened her ability for the first time, suddenly pulled the entire high-speed car from the steering wheel, and then slammed into the oncoming truck. Do not. After this moment came into view, Qin Ji Lei immediately couldn't accept it, and forcibly withdrew from this memory. Feeling that Qin's spiritual desire was about to explode, Su Chen sent a force without hesitation, forcibly diluting the fluctuations of the opponent's power, and soothing his emotions, making him gradually calm down. My parents, they were killed by me. Qin's whole body was buried in Su Chen's arms, and she burst into tears. In her past memory, she lost both her parents and was adopted by the Mutant Academy, but the truth is, she killed her biological parents when she woke up, and was then discovered by Professor X. It seems that in order to prevent her emotions from getting out of control due to this incident, Professor X chose to cut this memory. The fact is so cruel, Qin, who has never imagined such an ending, is inevitably out of balance. Why? Su Chen sighed inexplicably. He only felt extremely irritable and hated himself for opening the seal. Repeated hesitation and self-blame made him want to find a sandbag to vent his anger and give him a good beating. It's okay, I have everything. He suppressed the anger in his heart and let himself return to normal. Now Qin Ge Lei needs him more. Su Chen stabilized his emotions. The next morning, Su Chen and Qin Ge Lei went a long way. When the ripples of water ripples in the space gradually subsided, the two had already shuttled to a suburban town in Connecticut. After reading the entire memory fragment, the driver's father did die unexpectedly, but the mother was rescued from a serious injury. As for Xiaoqin Ge Lei, a self-protection mechanism was created, and the telekinetic barrier left her unscathed. Following the memory, the two came to a single-family villa, and Qin Ge Lei's mood suddenly became tense at this time. Because this was the house she lived in when she was a child, and the woman in the courtyard seemed to be her mother. As if sensing something, a woman who was tending the lawn of the house suddenly looked outside the gate of the courtyard fence. After looking at each other for less than 2 seconds, the woman swallowed her saliva, and the water bottle in her hand fell all of a sudden. I'll go get you some water. Qin Gelei's biological mother wiped her hands, then rushed to the kitchen to pour water. Su Chen and Qin just walked slowly in the living room. I still remember. Everything was exactly the same as before. The TV cabinet, sofa, and air conditioner in the living room are all the same as before, and even the plain-colored blanket underneath is almost just replaced with a new one. It's just that when Qin saw the photos on the wall showcase, she was silent for a few seconds, looking at the photos inside with a very complicated expression. There are old photos of parents posing together. There are pictures of mothers with 2 strange girls. A lot, and they're from childhood to adulthood. The only thing missing from this showcase is her photo. Those were the 2 girls I adopted later. One in high school and one in elementary school. The middle-aged lady stood in front of the kitchen, looking at Qin Ge Lei very anxiously. Qin looked at the frightened expression on the other's face. Even if she didn't need to read minds, she already knew that her biological mother was afraid that she would hurt them. The fear that the car accident caused by the loss of control, the estrangement that had never been in contact for more than 10 years, cut off the mother-daughter relationship between the two. Qin Gelei's delicate face was lonely. She really didn't know what to say. She only knew how to hold Su Chen's arm tightly. The things you left behind when you were a child are still. Mother took the initiative to break the silence. Soon, she went upstairs by herself and took down a large box of cardboard boxes. There are all the group photos of Qin Ge Lei when she was a child, dolls, Barbie dolls, small jewelry, and some precious clothes. After Qin Ge Lei opened it and read it, she wiped away her tears. She knew that it was time for her to leave, and it was almost time for the middle school students to go home. Although her biological mother had not remarried, she had adopted 2 children and started a new life. Going to disturb yourself can only increase the fear of the other party. Let go, it's good for each other. I'm living a good life now, I'm very happy, and after leaving the academy, I have a new family. On the occasion of parting, Qin Ge Lei took Su Chen's hand and said goodbye solemnly to her biological mother. After Su Chen also shook hands with the other party, he took the box and left with Qin. The next destination for the two was to rush to the town's cemetery. After finding the cemetery of Qin Ge Lei's biological father, after offering 2 bouquets of flowers together, they chose to say goodbye. Thank you. Qin Ge Lei has already discovered Su Chen's small movements. When shaking hands, Su Chen specially gave a life force, enough to stimulate the activity of cells in her body, delay aging and restore health. I'm sorry for them. Qin Gelei sighed inwardly. After her father died and her mother was rescued from a serious injury, she obviously felt extremely afraid of herself. In the end, she chose to send herself to the academy and start her new life. After letting go, she has nothing but boundless apologies, and only hope and encouragement for her mother's choice. I want to control the power of the Phoenix. As the Phoenix host, Qin couldn't just bow her head and give in. For the sake of her new family and Su Chen by her side, she must control the power in her body at will. After returning, Qin Ji Lei immediately started special training. At this moment, a surging wave of phoenix power lingered around her body, and as her right hand pushed forward, a vast force immediately swept across the lake in front of her. Sizzle. As if the entire lake surface was completely burned, under the radiation of the power of the phoenix, the water surface of the entire lake slid rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, violent clouds and mists evaporated. For a time, the smoke that spread quickly shrouded the treehouse by the lake, and the whole scene was like a fairyland in Penglai. Phoenix's anger is enough to burn everything and judge everything in the world. But the phoenix is not blindly destroyed. Its passion is able to give life to all things, regenerate everything that is broken, and create a world. Destruction and creation, the connection point of the soul of all things, the infinite spiritual energy, this is indeed the characteristic of the power of the phoenix. It's just. Destruction is often easier than creation. After all, it takes a lot of time to build a house with building blocks, but to destroy this house, it only needs a slight push. Creation, which is already the category of the white phoenix, is the third stage of the power of the phoenix. Qin Ji Lei, who had never touched this power too much since she was a child, still needs to go further. After being checked by Su Chen, the phoenix fluctuations leaked from the ancient seal have always been controlled at a stable level. After a whole month and a half, Qin showed no signs of losing control. I need to work harder to catch up with you. Qin became more and more confident. 3 days later, the wave of phoenix power that lingers around her has turned into a phoenix Yuya, feathers dragging red fireworks, and her whole person's temperament has become majestic and noble, like a phoenix queen. This is completely different from the gentle and friendly teacher Qin. Whether it's the teacher or the queen, Qin has become more and more active in the past week. Su Chen didn't think much about it, just regarded it as a love affair of a young couple. It wasn't until a day later, in the dark of the night, on the cotton couch in the treehouse, that Su Chen finally felt that something was wrong. The woman sitting in her arms has a blurred water pattern in her eyes. She is full of love and amorous feelings. Her whole person is completely different from Qin Ji Lei's gentle and shy temperament. This is not Qin Gray. Su Chen suddenly woke up. This is the Dark Phoenix. Su Chen's hand just blocked the face from his arms. It is still this delicate and flawless face, but the expression and temperament have undergone earth-shaking changes. The rippling water patterns in those eyes are simply charming, enough to capture anyone's heart and soul. Su Chen used the mental fluctuations to feel it carefully, and immediately realized that the Qin in front of him was not himself at all. The more turbulent and dark spiritual power of the other party was obviously the legendary Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix. Su Chen immediately realized what was wrong with Qin. Another personality emerges. Dark Phoenix didn't reply immediately, but pulled down the right hand that Su Chen was blocking, and she rubbed his face like a well-behaved cat. I am Qin, Qin is me, we are one body, why should you mind? She admitted it. It seems that after the seal was broken, it was released for you. Su Chen understood. Mentioning this, the Dark Phoenix became displeased. If there is a chance, I will whip the vegetative person from Professor X to the corpse. Boundless killing intent surged out of her words, and even the night light around them dimmed inexplicably. As if her anger was enough to cover the stars. But if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be born. Say it. She laughed again. This smile directly made the surrounding stars even more dazzling. It turned out that in order to prevent Qin Ji Lei's mood swings, Professor X sealed not only memory fragments, but also some negative emotions, anger, sadness, depression, and killing intent, all of which were sealed together. These negative aggregates merged with the power of the phoenix inside, and gradually formed a negative personality. The origin of the Dark Phoenix is as simple as that. As she said, she is Qin Ji Lei herself, and Qin Ji Lei is also her. I really envy her. There is only happiness, and the bad, sad, angry, are all thrown to me. I know everything she did, and I can only stay in the boundless darkness of captivity for a lifetime. Fortunately, you let me out. Thank you. The 1-year anniversary star is really nice. Dark Phoenix raised his right hand, and carefully looked at the silver-white ring on his index finger with a pair of eyes. Obviously, everything Qin Gray has seen, and the places she has been, have been seen by this other she who is imprisoned in her body. This is ridiculous. Su Chen's expression was a little indifferent and displeased. Let Qin come back. His right hand has been pressed on the back of Dark Phoenix's head. You are so ruthless. Under the eyes of incomparable resentment, Black Phoenix's consciousness was driven out by the influx of foreign forces, and his eyes lost their luster, and the whole person passed out. In less than a few seconds, the figure in his arms opened his eyes again. Qin Ji Lei wiped her sullen eyes, looked at Su Chen, who was very serious in front of her eyes, and couldn't help but say, "What's wrong? Did you not know what happened just now? Didn't I fall asleep? Then you woke me up." Qin Gelei's response made Su Chen feel a chill in her heart. It sounds obvious that when the consciousness of the Dark Phoenix occupies the body, Qin Gelei's id consciousness will be dormant, completely unaware of what is going on outside. This gave Su Chen a bit of a headache. He sighed. Soon, he explained the existence of another personality, the Dark Phoenix, one by one. This time, Qin Ji Lei was immediately shocked. She only knew that if she was too immersed in the power of the Phoenix, she would accidentally run wild and out of control, but she didn't know that there was another personality in her seal. And the other party even spent a lot of time with Su Chen in his own capacity this week. This made Qin Ji Lei a little overwhelmed. "I'll figure it out." Su Chen signaled that the other party was at ease. "And many more. Do you mean to completely eliminate this consciousness?" Qin Ji Lei suddenly grabbed Su Chen's right hand. "I won't let the appearance of this other personality hurt you," Su Chen assured. He has realized that the Black Phoenix has a much stronger personality. After all, this personality consciousness has been immersed in the power of the Phoenix much longer than Qin Ji Lei. Of course, the consciousness of the Dark Phoenix is still another personality formed by memory fragments and negative emotional fluctuations. Compared with the id, it was limited to the seal before, and it is still very small, and it is not difficult to destroy it. But Dark Phoenix's words are also correct. The two of them are one body, regardless of you and me, both will be damaged. As long as this personality is erased, it will still deal a heavy blow to Qin Ji Lei's soul. So, Su Chen had an incomparable headache. As a last resort, he may only choose to seal it back. It's just. In this way, Qin Ji Lei's Phoenix power cultivation plan must be completely stopped. Wait a minute. Give me some time first. Qin Gray thought for a while, and asked Su Chen not to seal it for the time being. You pity her? Su Chen already felt her emotions. Yes. After all, she has endured too much for me. Those memories and negative emotions that were unacceptable to me were all thrown to her. It was another me who suffered so much for me alone. And she's been in a completely closed and dark environment for so long, which I can't imagine and accept. Qin Ji Lei felt a little tangled in her heart, and felt apologetic and uneasy about it. In Su Chen's view, Qin is too kind, for fear of performing a story of a farmer and a snake. I just hope she doesn't disappoint your kindness. Under Qin's pleading gaze, Su Chen put down his right hand, and his mental fluctuations also subsided. I will communicate with her. Since she can see and hear, take the initiative to communicate with me in my dream tonight. Qin Ji Lei's words were obviously meant to be heard by the other Dark Phoenix. That night, on the cotton couch, Su Chen tossed and turned a little. He couldn't sleep. He stood on the balcony of the treehouse in light pajamas, looking at the sparkling lake in the distance. He was waiting for the result of the negotiations after the two fell into a dream, and was also worried about Qin Ji Lei's safety. Hope tonight is a Christmas Eve. That night, Su Chen stood on the balcony of the treehouse in a trench coat and waited quietly. He was riding the cool breeze, but he was a little impetuous in his heart. After half an hour, Qin Ji Lei, who fell into a dream, woke up directly. How about it? Su Chen asked. Not so clear. Her consciousness has been condensed for more than 10 years, and this personality has always stayed within the seal, with some kind of obsession, like a girl in the rebellious period who wants to be stubborn with me. And she has absorbed so many negative emotions from my past and grew up in such a dark, oppressive cell. It's really hard to talk. This is the crux of the trouble. Another personality, the Dark Phoenix, grew up in a mental cage, soaked in negative emotions for many years, and even harbored a certain kind of envy, jealousy and hatred for the master, Gretchen Gray, and wished to replace it. But the Dark Phoenix is also a part of Qin's consciousness. To simply obliterate it will inevitably hurt the soul. Moreover, the Black Phoenix with the condensed power of the Phoenix is not so easy to die, and it is even more possible to rebirth after a few days of nirvana. Su Chen had a headache. But Qin was too kind and thought it was her own sin, so she wanted another chance for her. Su. Don't worry, I'm not willing to give up the power of the Phoenix like this. If I don't experience the Black Phoenix, how can I reach the third stage of the power of the Phoenix, the White Phoenix? Qin said very calmly and firmly. To catch up with Su Chen's pace, this is the vow she made earlier. If you want to continue to control the power of the Phoenix, you will have to go through the stage of the Black Phoenix sooner or later. If you are afraid of another self in this power, and stop there, This will make Qin Du look down on herself. I understand. Su Chen sighed. Smile, don't look tense. Qin stepped forward and rubbed Su Chen's face, trying to loosen his tense expression. Looking at the caring face, Su Chen couldn't help but feel relieved. You set your goals so high, and I can't relax. Once the Dark Phoenix is formed, the existence of Earth gods and Heavenly Fathers may not be enough to see. As for the White Phoenix, the third stage of the power of the Phoenix is a stalwart existence that directly surpasses the single universe level. Su Chen's future strength limit is still unclear, at least for now. He has not seen any bottleneck, and his strength has been rapidly increasing. It seems that promotion to the single universe level is only a matter of time. It can even be said that it is. A fact that it should be. Then go on. If the Dark Phoenix is not noisy and domineering, Qin Ji Lei can be regarded as one pair of souls now. Is this an inexplicable enjoyment of the blessings of Qi people for a week? Su Chen felt helpless and funny. After a week in a row, Qin Ji Lei continued to tap the potential of the power of the Phoenix, and continued to harness this power. It seems to have been resisted, and the appearance of the Black Phoenix is not as frequent as before. For the purpose of returning the book, Su Chen planned to go to Karmatage with Qin Ji Lei in person, and by the way, he also asked some spiritual and cosmology advice from the 700-year-old guardian of the Earth. With his European settlement close to the London temple, he also wanted to see the temple for himself, and it had easier access to Karmatage. The origin of the temple can be traced back thousands of years. In the era when Agamotto was the supreme mage, he personally built corresponding temple sites in 4 places on the Earth, and formed a super terrifying magic circle on the Earth to resist the invasion of demon gods from extra dimensions. Time has changed, and now there are only 3 temples left. The magic barrier that was maintained back then still exists, and the magic circle that supports the entire world is running. Before coming, he had given a magic sound transmission spell in advance to convey it to the king. After leaving the academy with Qin Gele and retreating in Xanadu for a long time, Su Chen has long been accustomed to life without mobile phone communication. After all, sometimes cell phone communication is not as convenient as ability. Something's wrong, Su Chen reminded. When they came to the front of the London temple, the ancient and elegant English-style building in front of them suddenly exuded an ominous atmosphere. Really be careful. Qin Ji Lei's thoughts penetrated the house, and as a result, she immediately felt the strange black smoke floating in the boundless. Under the pervading black arrogance, it was difficult for even her mental tentacles to extend. Not only that, the black smoke spreading inside even seeped out from the gaps in the doors and windows. In the blink of an eye, it was like a creep that covered the surface of the building, and it continued to grow, gradually enveloped, and swallowed up the entire temple as if it were about to devour. This is the rhythm to directly engulf the London temple. Interesting. Su Chen didn't stop at all. As if he saw something interesting, he stepped forward without any fear. He waved his hand forward, and his majestic thought power directly destroyed the black creep on the surface of the mahogany gate, and forced the locked gate to open to both sides. The strange thick fog that permeated the house was like a shark that smelled blood, and it was immediately extinguished in the direction of Su Chen. In the swept-in smoke, distorted and ferocious faces continued to emerge, as if the soul was bound inside, which made Qin Ji Lei feel shocked when she saw it, and only felt that her reason was inexplicably lost. To this, let there be light. Su Chen turned a blind eye, and the figure who stepped forward didn't stop at all. And he also used the words of Genesis in the Bible, comparing himself to a god. Less than a second. As if he followed the law, the words he expounded suddenly penetrated into the reality. The world seemed to obey his will, and the black mist that emerged suddenly dissipated under a blazing sunlight. What? One after another, sharp and terrible voices shouted continuously from the distorted face. With the inexplicable purification of the strange smoke, these hissing souls also dissipated. A time. The black smoke that permeated the entire interior of the temple disappeared. Let there be light was just a gimmick, and its essence was that Su Chen wiped out this smoke through reality tampering. When the strange smoke dissipated and the vision was completely unobstructed, the interior was destroyed everywhere, and the scene of the ruins came into the eyes of the two of them. A lot of corpses fell on the ground, all temple mages in robes. Look. Qin Ji Lei reminded. I saw a black hole-like arc gate hanging from the ceiling of 5 or 6 meters above their heads. It is this black hole that keeps leaking these weird black mists. Su Chen has learned a lot from Karmatage, and naturally knows that this door leads to the dark dimension. At the same time, a wisp of consciousness of the dark monarch Dormammu had already descended on this space, and the black smoke turned into a young man who looked down at the bottom. Earth people, dare to offend the gods. The roaring words echoed throughout the building with mental awe. Dormammu's anger was enough to form a mental agitation, causing a space to collapse faintly. After his words fell, the strange black smoke coming from the space tunnel became more and more violent. These black smokes are substantial air currents from the dark dimension, which are terribly corrosive, and this time, there are more figures of beasts jumping out of the smoke. Those are all native monsters of the dark dimension. The little monster still looks very unique. A reptile species on all fours, with a strange black flame flowing all over its body, a large mouth of a blood basin that selects and devours a circle of spiral-shaped sharp teeth, which are densely arranged. Jung. Su Chen flicked his fingers, as if he was playing an invisible gojung. The clanging sound rang out, and a wisp of invisible space fluctuations condensed into one place, turning into a straight sharp blade to face him. Shaw. The dark beast that jumped down in front of him was inexplicably slashed in the waist, and the fracture was extremely smooth, showing that it was sharp, and even the monster that followed from the black hole cut off its head. Jung. As Su Chen gently waved his hand again and again, the spatial fluctuations were pulled by him again, and the faint ripples condensed into one, and the space blades formed in an instant, and suddenly flew into the sky. What? What? Under the sound of screams, the dark beast that kept turning into two corpses fell from the sky. At last. Su Chen's will in this temple continued to rise, and even the vertical eye hanging in the air was suppressed. The ray of Dormammu's consciousness that stretched here suddenly sensed something was wrong. The spatial fluctuations quickly gathered like a tide, and then locked in the black hole in the air, and the arc-shaped gate tunnel immediately began to shrink, as if it were about to close. Damn Earth Pariah. As if the dignity of the demon god had been damaged, at this moment, a voice belonging to Dormammu came from the tunnel. Shaw. I saw a giant hand lingering in flames forcibly drilled out of it, and it just didn't let the space tunnel close, and the vertical eye hanging in the air was no longer solid, and it also turned into a puff of smoke, and then turned into the same giant hand. Try to prevent it from closing. Two giant forces exerted force from both sides, and it seemed that the momentum of closing the tunnel was stopped at once. Only, it's still a long way off. Su Chen was slightly refreshed, and the more surging spatial fluctuations followed his orders. In a few seconds, the dark tunnel built on the earth was closed. At the moment of closing, the giant hands that were blocking on both sides were all cut off swiftly. After more than a year, Su Chen is not just a huge improvement in psychic power. The space control, extended from the space teleportation, in terms of quantitative data, is the unified standard of the evolutionary gene pool, which is the level of LV9. That's why he made a screeching sound, causing the spatial fluctuations to instantly condense into a sharp blade in the space, like breaking the array of music, swiftly slaying the enemy. Generally speaking, there is really nothing that can stop the cutting of the space blade, let alone these stench beasts. The powerful space control ability also allowed him to successfully close a space tunnel. Bastard, I'm going to kill. Before Dormammu's words spit out the next character. Shut up. Su Chen interrupted him directly. His words, like a decree, bound the rules of this world, and even the wisp of consciousness that Dormammu had penetrated into the temple couldn't continue to speak a single letter. This. Dormammu was a little surprised. When did such a human monster appear on Earth? Subject to the protection of the Earth magic circle formed by the three temples, Dormammu's body cannot come in person, so this action can only slowly infiltrate his own consciousness. As you can imagine, this is simply not strong enough. But it is more than enough to deal with the Templar mages other than the Ancient One. Is it not enough for the ruler of the Dark Dimension to kill these human reptiles even if he only has one finger? Now, he devoured one after another on a human body. This puts his dignity on hold. But Dormammu also has a heart of love for talent. This seedling is even much stronger than Cassius, a former disciple of the Ancient One. It is also a good choice to keep it under his command as a commemoration of conquering the Earth. Kid, I'll give you a chance. The words he wanted this ray of consciousness to speak were not even a sound at all. Damn it. Dormammu immediately woke up to the fact that this wave of power above reality was still imprisoning him, so that he could not speak until now. This seems to be taking a long time. At this moment, Dormammu had a lot of awareness of the strength of this human evildoer. It's annoying to be noisy. Su Chen said so indifferently. His dissatisfaction, his anger, and his disdain all set off a great mental wave, and then, this communication in the world, penetrated into reality. Just like that, the wisp of Dormammu consciousness in the air was quickly erased. I remember you. As the last moment was dying, Dormammu's consciousness, despite all his efforts, couldn't convey his dissatisfaction. It was as if he couldn't open his mouth after being punched, so he could only hold his anger in his heart in a very angry way. Kid. I must kill you. At this moment, in the entire boundless and vast dark dimension, Dormammu, who dominates all things, suddenly roared as the deity figure standing hundreds of feet high on the ground. It is a pity. Su Chen, who was on Earth, could not hear. However, every Templar mage traitor who has already accepted the dark power to transform himself, has felt the wrath of Dormammu incomparably. The most satisfied apprentice of the supreme mage Jiu Yi in the past, now Cassius, who has fallen into darkness, only feels a splitting headache. I understand. I will certainly take off the other's head as a sacrifice to the great Dormammu. Cassius, who single-handedly led the invasion, insisted on destroying the 3 temples in the world, immediately aimed at Su Chen. All set off for the London temple, and strip that kid alive for me. The devout believers put the Lord's face above everything else, and at this moment Su Chen has been classified as a heresy that must be killed in their eyes. Kill him. The anger of the Dark Monarch Dormammu was conveyed in the minds of the believers, and they felt that they immediately started to do something to Su Chen. The great evil god Dormammu can't come in person, so we believers will do it for us. The dark believers headed by Cassius immediately pointed at Su Chen. In fact, they wanted to occupy the London temple, and their operation to completely destroy it was also completely destroyed by the inexplicable arrival of Su Chen. No matter what, this man must be removed. In order for the power of the evil god Dormammu to come in full force, the temple must be destroyed, and this person must also be offered as a sacrifice to the Dark Monarch. What about Jiu Yi? This is where Jean Grey finds it strange. Looking at the fact that most of the temple was almost destroyed, I didn't find the supreme mage coming to stop it, and now, there are many figures in black and red robes walking down the stairs. The style of the robe is different from the ordinary temple mages. Of course, it is also very obvious that it is different from ordinary people. The dark waves that haunt me. And the crystalline blocks formed by the erosion of the dark force on the surface of the skin are all heartfelt discomfort. And the figure who came from the spiral staircase at the head was Cassius. The proud disciple of the Supreme Master in the past was once regarded as his successor, but as a result, this talented and intelligent land was plunged into darkness. Humanity. Feel the grace from the evil god. Feel the pain the darkness gives you. Words fall. Cassius' hands had cast a spell. He doesn't care too much, knowing that the other party has wiped out a wisp of Dormammu's consciousness, and even let the deity in the extra dimension be so angry. This enemy is naturally unique. So, as soon as he got started, he made a big move. Mirror space. The invisible reality fluctuations suddenly covered the entire London temple, rippling like an ink painting. If it is just an ordinary mirror space, it can be understood as a short-lived parallel space-time that does not interfere with the original world. But now, this Dormammu chief Earth believer has directly filled this mirror space with terrifying dark forces. In an instant, the surrounding light was inexplicably dimmed, and the sun overhead was completely blocked by a black curtain. The fluctuation of black aura lingered in it, and every breath seemed to have a human face twisted there. In fact, this is the soul of others bound by the dark dimension in the past. The soul of the deceased cannot find peace, and can only live forever as a tiger and become a slave of Dormammu. There is such an evil god in this universe? Qin was shocked. In a sense, she even admired Jiu Yi. How much pressure it would take to fight against such a terrifying and dark evil god. However, in such a dark and eerie atmosphere, Qin always felt that her spirit was a little unstable, as if a force was constantly stirring up your negative emotions. Qin's discomfort was acutely felt by Su Chen. To this, his right foot lifted lightly, then fell suddenly to the ground. Boom. Under the fluctuations of the mirror surface space that was not fully formed, he stepped on the ground, not only forming a substantial annular shockwave, but also knocking out all the oncoming figures. It even smashed a space directly, and with a click, the entire dark space began to crumble. How is this possible? Cassius' complexion changed greatly, and his hands continued to urge more strength to try to stabilize the space. Only. The momentum of collapse was unstoppable. With a loud bang, the space collapsed instantly, like pieces of broken glass falling from the sky, and the entire dark world that lasted for less than a few seconds was shattered. He is stupid. Never thought that one of his big moves would be easily resolved. With that alone, he knew that his spatial attainments, and his penetration of the power of reality, were not as good as this young man. Where did this monster come from? Feel the pain, right? This time, Su Chen took a step forward. Just after this step fell, the space ripples and waves rippled under his feet. In an instant, when his footsteps touched the ground, the whole person had come to Cassius. Not good. This time, the chief heretic god disciple became extremely flustered, and for a split second, the figure in front of him occupied the entire vision of his pupils. His figure appeared in an instant, his clenched fist followed. Click. Su Chen fell with a punch, and the magical barriers supporting the whole body on the opposite side continued to burst, without any blocking effect at all. Boom. The fist without delay just fell on Cassius' head. Boom. It burst like a watermelon, and the whole person's head exploded at once, and the red and white things were sprayed out, and the rest of the body was blown away by this punch. The residual power that was left undiminished caused the stump to smash into many walls behind it one after another, and even blasted out of the temple, slumped down outside the 2 streets. This. Lord Cassius. Impossible, was this killed in an instant? All of a sudden, even many heretic god believers were stunned, watching this scene in shock. After being eroded by the dark force in the body, it is reasonable to say that it will numb the emotions, and the whole person will become more and more mindless and bloodthirsty. When Su Chen's performance, this moment's unreasonable spike, the terrifying visual impact of this scene directly woke them up. They couldn't accept the death of the chief believer. Once they realized that the other party's behavior was also detrimental to the dignity of the evil god Dormammu, the killing intent of these people boiled and burned again. Go together. Kill him. The crowd shouted in unison. It's just. When Su Chen looked back and turned to face most of them, when his eyes swept across the faces of the believers one by one, the pace of these people stopped without exception. Under Su Chen's indifferent and ruthless eyes, everyone couldn't look at him, only to feel that the others' sharp eyes were full of killing intent, as if they wanted to penetrate their own heads. The instinctual fear brought by the terrifying spiritual shock even directly overshadowed their evil god worship, so that they could not move. Just a glance of Su Chen's gaze was enough for these Dormammu believers to be unable to bear the pressure brought by their gaze. All the figures who had stepped forward were like space-time stagnation, suspending in place, even lowering their heads, unable to lift their heads, and even their spines bent under inexplicable pressure. That was the pressure Su Chen put on them at this moment. Even the evil god worship they trusted in the past could not give them any support and help at this moment. Goodbye. Su Chen whispered. The words fell. The fluctuations of reality are rippling like watermarks. This time he used reality obliteration. Compared with space control LV9, the power of reality tampering is still stronger. Although it is not as good as the LV15 of telekinesis, it is already at the level of LV11. In less than a second, this power of reality has already acted on the figures around. Like an eraser on a blackboard, everyone's figure was quickly erased, and pieces of debris drifted from the body. Out. Almost 20 lives were wiped out like this, and it was not without twists and turns. The dark power remaining in their bodies obviously resisted. To this end, Su Chen raised his eyebrows, increased the fluctuation of reality, and eliminated all the forces belonging to the dark dimension. At this time, from the other side of the spiral staircase, there were several figures in crimson robes. It is the staff of the Templar Mage, and among them is the assistant of the future Doctor Strange, Wong. Terribly sorry. It just happened that you came to the door and let you encounter such an embarrassing thing. But fortunately, you came here, otherwise, the entire London temple may be completely destroyed by these evil god believers. Ordinary physical and conventional forces are difficult to destroy this temple, only the erosion of the power of the dark dimension can eliminate the enchantment behind the entire temple. These temple mages were all covered with tints, and the king was clutching his arm, obviously injured. Only after the real fight did it become clear how terrifying the strength of these dark believers was. Their more corrosive dark magic alone was enough to make people unable to guard against them. But compared to the mysterious young Su Chen, he is simply vulnerable and weak to the extreme. It's Cassius. God, it's really him. No one has seen the scene just now, but when the Templar mage outside ran to dispel the public's panic and deal with the corpse by the way, he still brought a very terrifying fact. Cassius, Ji Yuyi's most proud apprentice in the past, now his strength has skyrocketed after he threw himself into the darkness, and he died after being shot in the head by the opponent. In order to become stronger, the ghost knows what he has gone through, and the reward is to die with one punch. Pathetic, deplorable. Thinking of this, everyone became more and more in awe of Su Chen's eyes. It was no wonder that the Supreme Master Ji Yuyi was regarded as the guest of honor. It seems that the previous rumors are also true. Everyone heard that Ji Yuyi wanted to hand over the next Supreme Master to Su Chen, but was rejected. Now that the real power is in front, everyone knows that the news is probably true. However, after hearing these words, as the eldest disciple accepted by Ji Yuyi, Baron Mordo's face was a little ugly. Master Ji Yuyi will be fine, right? At this moment, people thought of the news that the Supreme Master had not yet appeared. This is clearly an anomaly. When Su Chen actually met the Supreme Master Ji Yi, it was in the palace of Kama-Taj. The news released to the outside world is also an injury retreat, so that all the temple mages should not worry too much. You have absorbed the power of the dark dimension. Both Su Chen and Qin Ji Lei clearly felt a very evil dark power in Ji Yi. Yes. Ji Yi, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, did not hide it. Today, she is many years older than the last time we met, and there are more wrinkles on her face. I'm just a mortal. In order to survive for more than 700 years, in order to take another look at the world, I can only prolong my life with the help of external forces. The Earth Guardian said a little lonely. Profound magic originally draws power from demons and extra dimensions. In order to prolong his life, Ji Yi has always maintained his life by plundering the power of the dark dimension. Unfortunately, after the Supreme Mage went to the dark dimension last year, she did not get it as she wished, but Dormammu discovered her secret instead. As a result, the Dark Monarch Dormammu took the opportunity to interfere with the Ancient One, and communicated his will to the Earth believers, so that they should act together. After all the calculations, Su Chen just came, and this action even damaged a large group of dark believers. It can be said that he lost his wife and lost his troops. I don't have much time. Strange has lost everything now and is about to get ready to go to Kama-Taj. As for your answer. Speaking of which, Ji Yu glanced at the time gem he wore on his neck and said, to solve the personality problem and even suppress the Dark Phoenix, it is very simple, that is to get the mind gem. It is not a problem with your talent. Mind gem? Hearing this, Su Chen was immediately surprised. Yes. There is attraction and resonance between the Infinity Stones. As early as a day ago, a cosmic force has come. This sentence instantly made Su Chen think a lot. He and Qin Gray haven't been connected to the world for a long time, but with the memory of the previous life, he still thinks that Loki came to the Earth. In the film and television universe, Loki, who was taken by Thanos as his subordinate, came to the Earth with a mind scepter, with the goal of taking away the space gem and destroying the entire Earth. However, in this 616 main universe, the historical trend may not develop like this. At least it won't happen. Iron Man alone blew up Thanos' Space Force with a nuclear weapon on his back, and the huge vehicle Temple 1 exploded directly. This is a bit silly when you think about it. A tyrannical army that made the major forces of the universe terrified, even suffered a big loss from the nuclear weapons of a small Earth. The most outrageous thing is that Asgard God's domain also claims that the level of science and technology is 3,000 years ahead of the Earth. It is not almost invincible, but it is embarrassing that the space battleship was overwhelmed by Thanos himself. Logically, it is no longer self-consistent and makes no sense at all. Today, in an environment that is even more vicious than the film and television universe, Su Chen naturally won't relax easily. No matter what, he is bound to get this spiritual gem. Since Thanos will definitely collect 6 Infinity Stones in the future, randomly select half of his life to obliterate them, and Su Chen, who will not entrust his life to luck, will sooner or later fight him. Interesting. Su Chen inexplicably had some fighting spirit. Speaking of which, he hadn't fought much for more than a year, and in today's battle to obliterate the followers of the heretic god, he felt a tinge of desire from the trillions of cells in his body after a long absence. Even the speed of genetic transformation has inexplicably accelerated a lot. His body is also longing for the baptism of fighting and accelerating his evolution. Then have a good fight. When Su Chen and Qin Gri went to Kama-Taj again, the undercurrent of the earth had already turned into a pot of porridge. In the year that Su Chen and Qin Ji Lei left the academy hand in hand, too many things happened. Superheroes have sprung up like mushrooms after a rain, and more mysterious forces have appeared on the map of the earth. Wakanda, Atlantis, and even Asgard, God's domain. The prince from Norse mythology finally picked up Thor's hammer again after a trial on Earth. After that, he returned to Asgard and let Loki, who was behind the trouble, unfortunately fall into the abyss. This god of tricks is also favored by the goddess of luck. Not only did he not die, but he also received appreciation from Thanos. In return, Loki will also offer Thanos Earth's Infinity Stones. If this happens, Asgard and even Earth will be given to the god of trickery as a fief. The action from Loki has also been launched. With the spiritual scepter in his hand, he calmly opened the space channel and descended to the Earth from the depths of the universe. After that, the base of the Dark Energy Research Center affiliated to S.H.I.E.L.D. completely fell, and the cosmic Rubik's Cube, that is, the space gem, fell into Loki's hands. Everything is so smooth. That's not why Loki is too strong. It's the stupidity of human beings. As a result, S.H.I.E.L.D. abused the cosmic Rubik's Cube and kept digging out the cosmic energy in it, so that it was generally perceived as a signal by Thanos, who was selected in the depths of the universe. Second, if humans hadn't turned on the device because they were curious about the movement of the cube, they wouldn't have given Loki a chance to teleport. As for the superhero side, damn, it's a complete collapse. At this time, the space carrier of S.H.I.E.L.D. was hired above the blue sky, and in order to compete with Loki, the Avengers Alliance has been established. Only, an embarrassing fact is that many of their members have become Loki's puppets. Hulk, Hawkeye, unfortunately lost their minds and became each other's people. By the way, there is also Wolverine, a non-staff who works for S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, we have lost his whereabouts, and it is not easy to find each other's figure at all. Everyone was a little frustrated. At this time, Iron Man Tony stood up in time. That guy is a high-profile guy and likes to be ostentatious. If he wants to choose a place as his performance stage, it must be not good. It's my home, Stark Industries Group building. Located in Manhattan, it is also the most iconic and tallest building in the entire city. Wearing a horned helmet and holding a golden scepter, Loki, the evil god, strolled around the rooftop of the Stark Group so slowly. The location is good. Standing on the highest place in the local building, overlooking the most prosperous city in the world from top to bottom, there is a heartfelt feeling of stepping on the whole city under your feet, which is really a very joyful taste. It is from here that there is a sense of pleasure in conquering the world. Loki stretched his arms and chose this place with great satisfaction. In addition, it is also possible to attack the arrogance of the Iron Man by the way. If there is an opportunity to communicate with each other in real time now, the god of mischief is not going to take the opportunity to ridicule. Your home is really good. Let's start. He waved his hand, indicating that those who also arrived on the rooftop can start work. Eric Savig, a physicist who had long been robbed of his mind by the mind gem, and a researcher of the Rubik's Cube, immediately obeyed the instructions and turned on the device very securely. In less than half a minute, an energy beam of light shot up into the sky and blasted directly into the sky. Shira. Under the majestic power of space fluctuations, the door of a wormhole was slowly opened in the air, and the Kitarui army, who had been waiting for a long time on the other side in the depths of the universe, finally made a carnival cry. A time. Outside the wormhole, batches of Zeta Swiss soldiers swarmed like a swarm, and the endless alien army came to Manhattan in such an open and above-mentioned manner. Wow. There was a loud noise, and the human beings living in the entire city also felt the threat from the universe at this moment. Kill them all. Sprinkle the blood of the enemy and your own anger on this land, and give them war as much as you like. Loki waved the golden scepter and commanded loudly. At the same time, he glanced at S.H.I.E.L.D., an Iron Man flying at the end of the horizon if he felt something. Come on, I'm waiting for you, Loki smiled. As the god of tricks and deception, he never makes unprepared plans, and the security staff of the entire Stark Group building have all become his puppets, guarding the entire building for him. In addition, there are many more rebellious superheroes on his side to ensure foolproof safety. I need more partners. He glanced in the other direction, and another unknown organization of superheroes on Earth came hand in hand. Good. Loki did not panic, but said triumphantly, a good stage play needs more supporting characters to set off. Only the tragic and solemnity of the superheroes of the Earth can reflect my strength. Bring it on. Come as much as you like, and let the storm come more violently. With those Arya-like words, with that very flat and sinister gesture, Loki defiantly sent out an invitation to the whole world. It seems that in order to confirm his words, more and more superhero groups, the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, have rushed to the scene. From the wormhole hanging in the sky, not only the Zeta Swiss soldiers riding airships, but also 10 war machines like whales in the sea shuttled from the wormhole. They are suspended in the air, their huge size, combined with the weight of hundreds of tons, directly rampage, smashing the skyscrapers of the city like tofu easily. What is even more frightening is that these war machines are still a troop transport ship, constantly pouring more Zeta Swiss soldiers to the streets of the city. Loki, die. It was at this moment that an angry voice came from above the 9 heavens, and there were more lightning flashes that followed. It was Thor, the god of thunder, who came in person. Find someone to play with you. Loki's pupils shrunk all of a sudden. He didn't want to fight head to head with the brainless man holding Thor's hammer. Some people play with him. Clang. With the sound of a sharp blade being unsheathed, General Chitarui, who was covered in armor and was more than 3 meters tall, finally made his move, a big man who had never taken a shot in film and television. His figure seemed like a silver light, and disappeared in a flash, approaching Thor in the air. Soon, the two were fighting in one place, and the fiery explosions and thunderlight continued to flicker. In a short collision, Thor, the god of thunder, was even beaten by the alien general who came suddenly. Loki blew a whistle, and then looked at a war machine that was completely damaged in the city street. It doesn't seem like there's no fun on Earth. Under the soft laugh, the evil god Loki has locked the stone man who smashed the machine, as well as the extremely powerful Cyclops and Storm. There was a hint of a smile in the gloomy and cold eyes, and then he jumped off the rooftop with the figure of the Hulk and set off towards these people. Less than 10 minutes. In the belly laugh of the evil god Loki, the thing under the control of the Mind Scepter attacked the Fantastic Four. Cyclops also lost his mind, constantly blasting his X-Men companions with laser beams. Ha ha ha. Such a scene of brother slaughter made the most mischievous bastard laugh out loud. It's over. The superheroes that were suppressed just now have been in decline. Many people have been tricked by Loki, and many superheroes have become their puppets. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s space carrier has become a makeshift headquarters. Hearing these bad news, Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., looked very ugly. There is another call from the Parliament to urge you. To make matters worse, the people above had grown impatient. They were very flustered. After all, it was the first time they had been invaded by such a large-scale alien, and it was so aggressive that there was no sign of being able to settle it. Therefore, many people in the Parliament are ready to use the last card of mankind, that is, the most deterrent weapon between countries. But once nuclear weapons are used, the entire city of Manhattan will be razed to the ground. Not only that, but millions of people in the city will also die completely, with no hope of survival. These congressmen really dare to say it, Nick Fury cursed. But the people above have also given themselves 3 minutes, and if they don't see any hope, they will use this whole card. X-Men. Fantastic Four. All were at a disadvantage without exception. S.H.I.E.L.D. even sent a message to Wakanda, begging for the help of the Black Panther, but nothing came of it. However, at this moment, Deputy Chief Hill suddenly shouted loudly. Wait a minute. There is news from the front, that boy suddenly appeared in Manhattan. It's him, Su Chen. There can be no mistake, the woman beside him is Qin-Ji-Lei. At this moment of crisis, no one thought that Su Chen, who had given them a great fear of lying a year ago, would arrive on the battlefield. Nick Fury was also unexpected. He couldn't figure out what the other party was thinking, and he was even a little worried. What is he doing here? The other party is holding a spiritual scepter, so he is not afraid that he will also run out of control. But no matter what, Deputy Director Hill was full of expectations. As the team leader who has followed the other party for more than half a year, she expects the other party to give her even greater surprises and let everyone feel the terrifying power of this mysterious young man. It's been a year since Su Chen walked the streets of Manhattan. To be honest, he did not come back here for a long time after traveling in many parts of the world. Before that, he even took Qin-Ji-Lei to the Queen's Community School if he was interested. This is where the dream begins. Not long after crossing, a stranger to the world broke out in this school, and then started a new mutant academy life. Of course, the most important thing is that this is also the place where he and Phoenix female Qin-Ji-Lei met for the 10th time. Su Chen still remembered the tall figure walking towards him at that time, the supermodel-like figure, and the gentle and friendly face, enough to impress anyone. Even Qin-Ji-Lei did not expect that the bewildered young man at that time would come together with him. Everything is so dreamy and magical. After being together for more than a year, Qin-Gelei cherishes everything in front of the person in front of her even more. She hopes that she will become stronger and catch up with him. At the same time, I also hope that Fang Ping is safe and healthy. Watching the wormholes hanging in the sky continue to emerge batch after batch of alien legions. He watched the entire bustling city of Manhattan gradually fall into the flames of war, submerged by endless flames, and the clean streets were even splashed with blood and corpses. Especially when the war whales suspended in the air continued to rampage, and the buildings collapsed like building blocks. Qin-Ji-Lei's heart beat for a while, and she became a little uneasy. For her own sake, her man has to travel through this war-torn city to find the villain from Asgard and take the Mind Stone from him. All for yourself? Isn't the price a little high? Qin-Ji-Lei was obviously a little sentimental. Are you worried about me? Su Chen, who was on the side, knew very well that the complexion of the woman beside him changed a few times, obviously being shocked by the momentum of the Kitarui army sweeping the city. Certainly. Qin-Ji-Lei nodded. I will not stop you, I will fight with you to the end. From the mouth of the Supreme Master Ji Yi, the two of them already knew the grandeur of the multiverse worldview and the dangers in it. Today, to escape the face. So tomorrow? Or what about the next day when it's more serious? Since the world is so dangerous, let's go to the end of the multiverse together. In an instant, Fiery phoenix fluctuations lingered around Chin's body, covering her body like a phoenix Yuya. Chin is serious. As for Su Chen's fighting spirit at this moment, he needs a crushing battle to prove to Chin that he doesn't need her to care too much about safety issues. If you want to dispel their concerns, then present them in front of the opponent with one hearty crushing victory after another. At the end of the main road in Manhattan, only their figures were upstream. Perhaps it was because such a sight was too rare, or because the Phoenix Girl's fluctuations were too exuberant, a group of Zeta Swiss soldiers swarmed over as if feeling provocative. The Kitarui have a biomechanical appearance, which is different from the performance in the film and television. The best of these alien creatures are like the comics, but they have the ability to deform. They seem to rarely use their throat vocal cords to make sounds, and habitually rely on invisible biological information to communicate. And the limbs are extremely flexible, enough to move and climb the vertical surface of the skyscraper like an ape. Despair. At this moment, Su Chen snapped his fingers lightly. The group of Chittoras climbing on the surface of the building, even the Chittori warriors driving the airship across the sky, or the swarming enemies on the streets, all felt something wrong without exception. The loss of life force in their bodies could not be stopped at all. In the blink of an eye, their bodies were like stone pillars that had been eroded by wind and sand for tens of thousands of years. A breeze turned their bodies into powder and dissipated in the sky. This is too scary. It's a bit more ingenious. What happened? So that the human beings who kept running and fleeing were suddenly stunned, looking at the wind and sand in the sky and at a loss, and had no idea where the good-looking alien figure went. Look, it's a superhero. Compared with the silent eradication of reality, it is obviously the huge and the Phoenix fluctuations swept by the heat wave are more attractive. I saw Phoenix Nuke Ge Lei was bathed in fireworks, and with a light push, a flame tornado plowed through the ground, and rolled up the roadside vehicles along with more than a dozen Kitarui figures into the sky. Before they landed, both the vehicle and the Chittori monster were annihilated and turned into gray wreckage. Flying. People shouted. Because this Phoenix girl actually rose from the spot, a terrifying sea of fire and heat wave instantly swept into the sky, smashing more than a dozen airships that were lined up. The initial performance of the power of the Phoenix is biased towards the destruction attribute. When this wave came down, the area in front of him immediately cleared all the visible Kitarians. But perhaps due to the internal communication of aliens, the number of enemies swept in this area has increased, and even the army of Chittori spewing from the wormhole in the air is also coming in this direction. It's really like a locust. Su Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. Then, the Earth's magnetic field established a connection with his body, and the moment of resonance made him counteract the gravity. In this way, he spread his hands and slowly suspended in the air. At the end of the street in front of him, an incomparably huge war machine also came, and it really rushed like a steel war whale. He raised his eyebrows, and the terrifying magnetic field fluctuations acted on the opposite body at once. This huge and sturdy steel war whale collapsed suddenly from the outside to the inside, as if a black hole had grown in the inner space, so that the entire body quickly collapsed from the inside. In a blink, a huge object that almost took up 6 lanes turned into a huge iron lump under Su Chen's thought. This was just the beginning. As Su Chen's body became more and more suspended in the air and gradually kept pace with Chin, the surrounding city buildings trembled slightly. The ever-increasing magnetic field fluctuations have formed substantial terrifying ripples in the air, so much so that the October skyscrapers are about to shake under Su Bird's feet. And many more. What happened over there? Iron Man Tony continued to accelerate in the air to get rid of the airship soldiers who were bitten to death behind. Only at this moment, he has discovered that there are 2 figures suspended in the sky in the distance. This is undoubtedly a very dangerous thing, and flying into the air will definitely become an excellent target. Sir, it's that Su Chen. The artificial intelligence Jarvis has locked the target for the first time, and presented the enlarged image of the character on the holographic screen of the steel suit. It's him. Iron Man Tony immediately changed his face. He never imagined that this person who had disappeared for more than a year and disappeared without a trace in the world suddenly appeared today. To this day, he still vaguely remembers his embarrassed scene that day. The manor that was in ruins, the corpses of the Brotherhood members scattered all over the place, and the mighty Magneto lost signs of life, and was held in her arms by a woman crying for help. All of this was given by this young man, and from that day on, there was no mutant Brotherhood in the world. He actually came back. What is he doing? At the same moment, every screen of the space carrier headquarters was paying attention to the figure hanging in Manhattan. Su Chen's origin is rarely mentioned, and even no file information has been updated in the past 6 months. Just because of him, the Phoenix Girl, and the Scarlet Wanda, The mutant registration bill was never mentioned again after the leaders of the two mutants left the stage. To this day, the access rights required for Su Chen's files are only available to individual first-level agents. In front of everyone's eyes, Su Chen started the performance. The tall figure above the sky just stretched out his arms to both sides, and in an instant, the Earth's magnetic field sent him an incomparable magnetic energy. His eyes became sharp at this moment, and his entire brain was running as fast as a supercomputer. He raised his left hand with one hand, and for a split second, the huge figures of the more than 10 war electric whales and the Kitterui people in the area under their feet flew upward uncontrollably. Almost at the same time, this rampant behemoth was so affected by its own mechanical structure, unfortunately, it was ruthlessly dismembered by Su Chen's thought. Under the terrifying magnetic field fluctuations, there was no room for resistance. As for the biomechanical structure of the Kitterui people, it has also become a drag on their own, and they cannot escape the capture of magnetic energy and are sucked into the air. Even more frightening is the content of iron in their body composition, which is much higher than that of humans, so their fate is obviously a bit tragic. Bang, bang, bang. One by one alien lifeforms exploded in midair. Under the call of magnetic energy, the iron elements in the Kitterui people broke out one after another, and blood sprayed out from every pore of them. Less than a few seconds. Tens of thousands of Zeta Swiss soldiers, along with more than 20 huge war machines, all perished in Su Chen's magnetic field. At last, with a light wave of Su Chen's right hand, the mechanical fragments suspended in the air, and even the flesh and blood remnants floating in the sky, all annihilated and dissipated under the terrifying fluctuations of reality. For a time, a gray-black rain fell in the sky. It was all the molecular residues of annihilation that fell. Su Chen's public appearance this time was in such a terrifying and domineering way. Who is this? Rocky, who was teasing the superhero from the ground, suddenly looked terrified. He was shocked and angry. The city of Manhattan was originally a stage for himself. Good guy, this bastard stole all his glory. The evil god Loki was so furious that he felt his heart beat faster. What happened to this guy? Just now, the ability to annihilate most of the Kitterui people has completely silenced the hustle and bustle of the entire city. Is this Magneto's ability? No, it's more than that. What is the ability of that last hand? All the members of the space carrier were extremely surprised. That's an exaggeration. Deputy Director Hill, who had long expected the other party to perform, felt heartfelt shock, which seemed to use super strong magnetic field manipulation and terrifying power related to reality. However, here comes the problem. How did this young man accurately capture all the Chitauri units in such a large city? This is a very thoughtful question. Just now, his hand didn't accidentally hurt any human beings at all, and even the skyscrapers filled with reinforced iron plates didn't move much under the extremely strong magnetic field just now. Inside the door to see the door, the layman to watch the fun. Compared with the ability to easily overwhelm the Kitterui army, Tony the Iron Man was more curious about how the other party accurately captured the object. After all, there were too many metal objects attracted by magnetic energy in the entire Manhattan. It's as precise as a scalpel and as beautiful as art. Looking at the rustling powder splashing all over the sky, Tony became more and more terrified of his understanding of this young man. At this time, Su Chen, who was above the air, slowly retracted his hands, and he was more about challenging the limits of his brain than magnetic energy controls. That's right. In order to accurately capture all Kitterui units, not to shake any steel foundation in the city, and not to accidentally hurt any human being, his mental fluctuations have already taken the lead in radiating a range. Every Chitauri unit is marked by his spirit. Then, like a puppet, an invisible magnetic field line pulled it up vertically in midair. To achieve this step in a few seconds, synchronously deal with tens of thousands of enemy units, one can imagine how much of a challenge to his own spiritual power. And more than 20 war machines with tens of thousands of tons are actually not much challenge to pull it up. You know, the film and television version of Magneto has enough strength to carry a famous landmark building, the Golden Gate Bridge, which cost more than 100,000 tons of steel to build. Although the duration is too short to be of great reference value, the dead Magneto in this world can easily do this scene, but it is simply impossible for Magneto to grab tens of thousands of enemy units with such precision as Su Chen. Possible things. He does not have the computing power of a supercomputer like Su Chen, nor does he have such a huge and considerable mental power. Kill him. Looking at the figure above the sky, Loki couldn't hold back his breath and shouted to kill his opponent. At this moment, General Chitauri, who had repelled Thor for the time being, finally cast his cold eyes on the figure in the distance. Boom. There was a loud bang in the same place, and his figure came out of the sky like a fighter jet. Go down. Su Chen just glanced sideways at the other party, and then raised a finger to the ground. In less than a moment, the flying General Kitarui suddenly fell heavily to the ground under the suppression of magnetic energy fluctuations. With a bang, the figure covered in mechanical armor smashed into the street to form a huge pit, and the cracked cracks even spread dozens of meters away. Roar. At this time, a beast roar suddenly rang out, and Su Chen's figure in the air was inexplicably shrouded in darkness. I saw the Hulk's huge body jumping from the ground, and this amazing jumping ability was enough to jump above Su Chen's head. Seeing an incomparably huge fist suddenly smashed towards him, Su Chen's eyebrows didn't even raise a single point, and his face didn't even have any emotions about it. To this, he also just punched back. Boom. Soon, the fists of the two bombarded each other, and with a loud bang, a strong incomparable rushing airflow broke out directly between the two, and even a ring-shaped shockwave swept out. The silhouette of Su Chen in the sky took 2 steps back, unscathed, while the Hulk who jumped from him did not have the ability to fly. This time, even Loki was a little surprised. This guy actually withstood the Hulk's attack with one punch? You must know that the two people's body sizes are not comparable at all. The Hulk's iron fist with a thick stump is enough to smash a giant tank, and he has the advantage of gravity from jumping. Roar. The Hulk also doesn't seem happy with the result. He beat his heart like an orangutan, and expressed his anger to the figure in the air. Then, the Hulk's legs suddenly bent down. He is accumulating energy, brewing. Boom. The terrifying bouncing ability was demonstrated again. The Hulk jumped up from the rooftop, and the marble floor where he was standing suddenly showed a pit. I have to say, the Hulk's momentum is really mighty. Even the Phoenix Girl on the side couldn't help but be surprised, which was even more terrifying than the Colossus in the X-Men. Only this time, the Hulk can no longer take advantage of it. Fighting fists, then I can also be good at it. Su Chen sneered and danced his fists. Boom. It was another face-to-face, and the collision between the two broke out again, but this time, Su Chen's advantage was incomparably obvious, and his fist, which seemed weak in comparison, contained terrifying power. Boom. For a time, the entire huge figure of the Hulk fell to the rooftop like a meteorite. The terrifying strength and prestige even made his figure pierce through the roof and even several floors. Seriously, Su Chen was filled with terrifying power fluctuations, and the trillions of cells in his body became more and more activated, giving himself unprecedented power. After the first battle with the red tank per gram, he gained super power after the second mental runaway. And within this year, he also had a certain amount of control over his body. Not only every muscle, every bone, every organ, and even every cell in the body, Su Chen has been able to initially control it. You must know that in addition to the infinitely evolved genes, his unparalleled talent also has highly activated cells all over his body. The two are juxtaposed. In the past, highly active cells have been shown to heal rapidly and exceptionally after physical injury. Now, Su Chen has initially mastered how to use his body cells. Every cell in the body radiates light like a small melting pot, like an engine bursting with energy. Although it is weak, there are hundreds of trillions of cells in the body. When they gather together and emerge in the right arm, it is a terrifying force. To this end, with the trillions of cells in his body operating like a furnace, Su Chen's whole body was covered with a faint pale golden luster. God. This is God. At this moment, everyone's eyes turned to this figure who was shining like a god. What? Even the prince of Norse mythology, Thor, was attracted by the radiance of Su Chen's body. The figure above the sky was bathed in the sun's rays, and under the background of the pale golden luster lingering around him, he was really more like a god than himself. Where is this monster from? Thor was shocked. The pale golden figure that all the commoners in Manhattan couldn't help worshipping disappeared into the air. Swish. Under the teleportation, Su Chen's figure suddenly came to the skyscraper under his feet. As soon as the Hulk figure stood up, he suddenly saw his opponent standing in front of him. Roar. He shouted, and the huge green fist slammed into the opponent with a huge momentum. Su Chen was indifferent and utterly indifferent, but also punched down. Boom. The Hulk's fist exploded into a cloud of blood, and the huge arm was fractured and broken all at once. This is the third fist bump between the two. This time, there was no balance. It was Su Chen's crushing victory. After awakening more and more cells in his body, he directly interrupted one of the opponent's arms. Fetat. Under the power of this huge fist, the Hulk's body not only fell to his knees, but even the floor that supported him also burst open. The terrifying and vast Yu-Wei continued to pierce the entire building like a cannonball. The terrifying roar blasted through the glass of half the building from the inside out. Su Chen. who was arrogant and unforgiving, even made a punch, and directly knocked the opponent's figure from the rooftop of the 55th floor to the parking garage on the 3rd underground floor. This Hulk, who claims to be stronger and stronger, has stopped roaring. The wild and untamable guy had his arms broken, most of the organs in his body were all displaced, and the blood flowed like a spring. It tastes good too. Compared with the feeling of punching to the flesh, Su Chen clearly felt that the control of magnetic energy and the bombardment of psychic power were not as good as the feel of a fist. This is also his physical strength advantage that he rarely shows. For human beings, everyone can only wave their arms, but cannot control their own organs and every bone. But Su Chen can do it. Even the subtle invisible cells will be initially dominated by him. What's even more terrifying is that his cells are also different. Like the infinitely evolved genes, they contain very terrifying potential. When they are highly active, they can even send majestic energy to his whole body. Now I can initially support cells, and in the future, I can even control every gene of my own. By then, you can have any ability you want. The Hulk's aura fluctuated very sluggishly, even though his arms had been scrapped at this time. A vigorous vitality fluctuation was still in full bloom in his body. That is the gamma particle fluctuation. Why Dr. Banner became the Hulk is caused by the accidental radiation of gamma particle rays in the laboratory. It is precisely because of this power that Dr. Banner has such terrifying destructive power, as well as an almost indelible vitality, and the more angry the stronger the strength. After Dr. Banner became the Hulk, it wasn't that he never thought about suicide, but he woke up safe and sound after a bullet pierced his head and lost consciousness. In a sense, the Hulk is really strong. Being beaten so fat, the anger in the heart of the Hulk can be imagined. However, in addition to anger, there is boundless fear lingering in his heart. He was scared and a little cowardly. The Hulk's personality even wants to deliberately overdo it to Dr. Banner, and does not want to continue to face this mysterious young man of unknown origin. But at this moment, Loki, who seemed to be far away, sensed his cowardice, and immediately relied on the connection of the Mind Stone to continuously arouse the opponent's anger. Stand up. Stand up for me, damn fat, and beat him hard. Under Loki's scolding, the Mind Gem, which can manipulate the mind of any life, immediately instilled endless anger into this pitiful Hulk's mind. The boundless anger burned up, covering his park all at once. The energy of the gamma particles continued to increase in an instant, and the majestic vitality not only made the Hulk's arms heal suddenly, but also caused 2 large bags to grow on the shoulder blades of his back. The big bag just cracked open, and a pair of brand new arms with blood and mucus suddenly grew out of the monster's back. At this moment, the Hulk was actually promoted to the 4-armed Hulk form under the manipulation of the Mind Gem. Roar. Under the roar of the beast, the 4-armed Hulk leapt up, and the walls of the sunblock were as fragile as tofu bricks and shattered when he touched them. In a blink, he just followed the large gap that runs through the entire 55-story building, from the parking lot on the 3rd underground floor, all the way back to the rooftop. With his keen hunter instinct, the 4-armed Hulk has locked in Su Chen's breath. Under Loki's intentional arrangement, the Stone Man also went crazy in the direction of Su Chen. Su Chen, who was already in the air, raised his eyebrows slightly, and the appearance of the 4-armed Hulk was beyond his expectations. But, that's all. Swish, in less than half a second, Su Chen, who was teleporting from space, took the lead in front of the Hulk. The 4-armed Hulk in rage still has extremely terrifying fighting instincts, so he suddenly punched out in the first place. No, it's 4 punches. But still too slow. With instinct, this monster can only block in front of him with 2 pairs of arms. Boom. Another fist of Su Chen fell, and there was no suspense at all. With a click, the pair of arms that blocked the face broke again, and the broken wound exploded with a blood mist. As for the other pair of arms, unfortunately, the energy from the impact spread and the bones were broken. Fortunately, in the form of the 4-armed Hulk, the Hulk was obviously deadlocked for a while. After only half a second, his body could no longer support it any longer, and he was knocked out again by the huge shockwave in front of him. It depends on how long your anger can grow. Su Chen said coldly. His figure disappeared in a flash, and before the Hulk's figure fell from the sky, he caught up with him head-on, and made up for it when the other party hadn't stabilized his body. Boom. At this moment, it was as if a meteorite had fallen to the ground. The vast impact directly smashed a piece of the ground, and the depth of the pit was almost 10 meters deep. What's more terrifying is that Su Chen didn't give his opponent a chance to rest at all. In less than a second, the 4-armed Hulk that sank into the pit was pulled out by him and kicked into the sky. With another teleportation, Su Chen immediately gave him multiple attacks in midair, and his fists as dense as raindrops directly shattered all the organs in the Hulk's body. In the end, he added another kick and blasted his figure into the ground in exactly the same way. Su Chen can be said to be more and more cool. The light golden luster lingering on his body became more and more blooming, and it was obvious that the power given by the cells in his body also increased. This is a punching bag. It's too miserable, Dr. Banner. No, the blow suffered by Hulk is too terrifying, it's just like being beaten mercilessly as a steak. From this moment on, all the members of the Avengers are stupid. If it wasn't for the steel battlesuit, Tony would have wanted to wipe the cold sweat off his face. Black Widow even turned her face away to see the suffering of Dr. Banner, who was reduced to a puppet. Even Thor, the god of thunder who had fought before, saw the Hulk being beaten mercilessly, and felt inexplicable pain hallucinations, as if the opponent's fist fell on his body. The Hulk isn't going to die. Probably not. But I'm afraid the Hulk's consciousness won't reappear, so that Dr. Banner can't change in the future. The members of S.H.I.E.L.D. also watched the scene in front of them in real time, although because the opponent moved too fast, the fist speed was even stronger, so that the afterimage was blurred and could not be seen clearly. But the real injury of the Hulk makes people unable to help but mourning for him. Before that, Dr. Banner had already revealed that the Hulk was another consciousness of himself, which had dominated the Hulk form for many years. If Hulk is really beaten, then it's really possible that he won't be able to transform in the future. It shouldn't be struggling. After another kick slammed it into the ground, the plume of smoke rose into the sky, and the Hulk's painful roar could not be heard. Inside the pit, the blood-soaked body could no longer move, and even if Loki's mind gem was urged, he couldn't make this puppet stand up. Obviously, he's reaching his limit. And because of the relationship between the heart and the complete confession, the fearful Hulk's consciousness has long since closed itself, and is no longer willing to take over the four-armed Hulk. Soon, the Hulk form was lifted and restored to a human body. As for the Stone Man who had been madly attacking just now, he had already been stopped by the Phoenix Girl, but the surging Phoenix Wave had already knocked him down. Relying on the incomparably overbearing spiritual power of the Phoenix Force, he forcibly released the Mind Gem from its manipulation. This, the evil god Loki, who was observing from a distance, was already embarrassed at this time. The wormholes in the air were still open, and the steady stream of Chitarui's army kept pouring in like dumplings. Compared with the loss of Su Chen's annihilation just now, it was nothing to mention. But the key point is, it seems that the Katarians themselves can't compete with their magnetic field control, and the huge machine with half-body mechanical mechanism is even more to deliver food to the other party. Damn. He didn't want to go back in despair, and then knelt down under Thanos' void throne, begging for forgiveness. Loki also didn't want to see the members of the Obsidian Generals laughing at him. This mission must not fail. Kill him. All targets for me to lock down that freak. Since the other party is so tricky and troublesome, then I will use endless crowd tactics to kill him. No one can claim to be invincible. When his strength is finally exhausted, when his energy is even more exhausted, he can't believe that he can kill all his Katarians. A time. The vast Kitarui army completely abandoned their respective goals and swarmed towards Su Chen's position. Some of the X-Men in another direction, even the Fantastic Four and others didn't know what happened. They didn't fly in the air like Iron Man and Thor, they only knew that their danger was suddenly lifted, which seemed a little inexplicable. Certainly, Loki's reasoning makes sense. But he never thought that he was already immersed in the battlefield. In order to play superheroes, he even jumped off the high rooftop. Loki's incomparably keen perception immediately realized that a danger pervaded his heart. He never imagined that his whereabouts would still be exposed. Obviously he never showed up at all, and only dared to remote control, but the boy was discovered by this young man. Run. Without thinking much, his figure turned into 10 into 100, and he split into 100 in an instant, allowing these identical figures to escape in all directions. You're scared. Su Chen's words echoed in his mind like a nightmare at this moment. Damn. At this moment, Loki has determined that the other party still has good spiritual attainments. Where on earth did the evildoer come out of? With a phantom-like magic, his figure has come to the rooftop of the Stark Group building. Next, Loki plans to fly into the air through the wormhole and find a safe place. But Su Chen's words resounded from his back at this time. Don't run away, just stay here. The voice was no longer conveyed in his mind, but echoed behind him, and it came from his back. Asshole, this guy really wasn't going to let himself go. He turned around abruptly, and the spiritual scepter in his hand burst into a fiery light wave of energy, but unfortunately, the light beam passed through an afterimage. Su Chen's figure appeared so quickly, and he came to Loki one step ahead of Lee. Loki's complexion changed greatly, and when he looked at the eyes in front of him, it made him feel cold to the bone. Just when he was about to raise the mind scepter in his hand to fight back, his consciousness suddenly went blank, his brain stopped using it, and the whole person's movements just went out of style. It was like pressing the pause button of the movie, and the whole person just stood there immobile. But the weird thing is, the time and space around did not stop at all, and the Zeta Swiss soldiers outside the rooftop were even riding an airship, and there were people nearby reminding Loki with hoarse voices. It's a pity that only Loki's figure can't move alone. Su Chen took the spirit scepter from his hand so calmly and passed him by. The principle is very simple. It's just suspending other people's somatosensory time, turning their consciousness into a blank, and the time around them doesn't stop at all. Professor X often uses this very profound spiritual ability. Clap. Huh. When Su Chen snapped his fingers, the poor Loki regained consciousness. The Rockies are stupid. From his personal perspective, in the next instant, all the figures in front of the spiritual power in his hands disappeared. What's going on? This god of mischief, who has been teasing others all his life, didn't even know that he was stolen for 2 seconds, and was played and cheated by Su Chen at this moment.